Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the New York City Council hearing for the Committee on Land Use. At this time, I'd like to remind everyone to please silence all devices, and at no point may you approach the dais. If you want to testify at today's hearing, please see a sergeant at the back of the room to fill out a testimony slip. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Committee on Land Use. I'm Chair Riley, Chair of this committee. I would like to welcome my colleagues in government. We're joined today by Chair Marte, Councilmember Encarnacion, Councilmember Thomas Henry, and Councilmember Felder. Welcome, Chair Sherman. Thank you for being here today, and we are glad to have you leading the Department of City Planning. Today is day 6, so we really appreciate you being here today. I am particularly pleased that the Director of City Planning is someone with a strong equity background. Investing in Black and Brown communities is a priority of myself and Chair Lewis. Due to an unforeseen events, Chair Lewis will not be able to attend today. Unfortunately, Chair Sherman, you seem to be joining DCP at a hard time because I was surprised and disappointed by the proposed budget for the agency. We are in the middle of a housing crisis, and the proposed preliminary budget for DCP in fiscal 2026 is not being increased. And to make matters worse, the administration is proposing to significantly decrease the agency's budget in fiscal 2027. For fiscal year 2026, the current budget is $58.2 million, and then will go down to $51.4 million in fiscal year 2027. The way we are going to solve our housing crisis is going to include much more planning and not less. So my questions today are focused on, first, the need for more staffing in DCP's borough offices to process more rezoning in a thoughtful way centered on our community's actual needs. Second, the need to pursue holistic neighborhood planning. Third, how much housing has the City of Yes reform that we passed in 2024 created to date? And fourth, the ongoing effort to reform the environmental review process, which is an important tool for our communities. I will also touch on some questions that I know Chair Lewis wanted to ask today about the importance of urban design, Sunnyside yards, and fair housing. As you can see, we have many issues we want to discuss today because land use and proactive planning for the council under Speaker Mendes' leadership is a high priority issue. And just want to state for the record, we've been joined by Councilmember Salam and Councilmember Brooks Powers online. Okay. I'm just going to recognize the panel that is testifying on behalf of DCP. We have our chair, Chair Sherman. We have Edith Hisu Chen, and we have David Parrish. I'm just going to give the floor to you guys so you can make your opening statements.
Good morning, Chair Riley, subcommittee chairs. I know Chair Lewis is not here today, and Chair Marte, and distinguished members of the Land Use Committee. I am Cydia Sherman. I am Director of the Department of City Planning and Chair of the City Planning Commission. I'm joined here today by City Planning's Executive Director, Edith Sue Chen, and Chief Operating Officer, David Parrish. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss the department's preliminary budget for fiscal year 26. I'm honored to have recently been appointed Director of the Department of City Planning and Chair of the City Planning Commission by Mayor Mandani. And while this is my 6th day on the job, I'm grateful for the opportunity to join you today and discuss our work to plan for the future of our city. First, I want to acknowledge the tremendous work that the City Council and City Planning have accomplished together in recent years. In partnership with this body, the agency has implemented historic updates to the zoning code through City of Yes and advanced thoughtful neighborhood plans across the boroughs that will deliver new jobs, housing, and investments to help communities thrive. But New York City is no place for resting on our laurels. The urgency of the housing crisis before us does not permit it. The apartment rental vacancy rate stands at 1.4%, the lowest rate since 1968. Half of all tenants are rent burdened, paying over 30% of their income on rent. But our housing shortage can't be summed up in these stats alone because it touches every aspect of New Yorkers' lives. It drives the imbalance of power that leaves tenants feeling at the mercy of their landlords. It fuels the displacement and gentrification that reshapes the neighborhoods and communities that we live in. It drives the homelessness crisis that impacts so many of our neighbors, including families and children. Indeed, in some neighborhoods, as many as 1 in 5 public school students are living in shelter or doubled up in an overcrowded apartment. And the housing shortage is quite literally pushing people out of the city, particularly Black and brown New Yorkers, who have long been the backbone of so many communities. So this is a time of incredible challenges, but also tremendous opportunity. We have tools in city government to chart a better path forward, to create a fairer, more affordable city for New Yorkers of all incomes and backgrounds. And I'm so proud to join Mayor Mandani, Deputy Mayor Bozarg, and the DCP team in this work. At DCP, this means unlocking significantly more housing across more neighborhoods so that opportunity is not just limited to a few places. It means working faster and smarter to reduce housing costs and timelines so we can get people into new housing faster. It means activating sites that lie underused and creating bold plans that support communities with more housing, jobs, and investments, all to make our city more affordable and equitable and a more equitable place for New Yorkers to live in. At a personal level, this work resonates with me deeply. I'm a lifelong New Yorker, and throughout my career, I've been working with communities to drive equitable change in stronger neighborhoods. Those experiences will absolutely shape how I approach this role and how I think about the responsibility we have to plan for a city that works for all New Yorkers. And of course, the DCP's work will continue across so many important factors, whether it's supporting thriving industrial and commercial sectors, enhancing waterfront resiliency, shaping citywide capital investments, contributing to the census efforts, analyzing the latest data trends, and engaging New Yorkers to participate in shaping the future of their city. To my colleagues in the council, we undertake this work in close partnership with you. And I look forward to continuing a strong collaborative relationship as we move forward. Now I'll turn to an overview of the preliminary budget. DCP entered fiscal year 26 with an adopted budget of $56.8 million and an authorized headcount of 364 full-time positions. Of this, $36.4 million and 190 positions are funded with city tax levy dollars. The rest of the $20.4 million budget allocation and the 174 positions are funded by state and federal grants, primarily through HUD Community Development Block Grant Program. Our $56.8 million FY26 adopted budget allocated $35.9 million or 63% to personnel services, which include part-time staff, interns, and members of the City Planning Commission. The remaining $20.9 million went to other than personnel services. Now, the FY27 preliminary budget. In comparison to the FY26 adopted budget, it represents a net $5.3 million decrease. This is almost entirely due to the expiration of $7 million in temporary funding, either grants or funding granted for environmental impact statements for projects that have since been approved by the council. At the same time, there is a new $1.7 million in funding to support work for the 2030 census and to begin implementation of the City Map Charter Amendment. Looking at personnel services, there was a net 6-position change in headcount. In total, the agency gained 12 new positions for census, city map, and capital planning work. At the same time, the agency lost 6 positions that were either temporary or grant funded. This increased headcount came at a net increase of $1.3 million for personnel services, which supports the increased headcount. Overall, the FY26 preliminary budget reflects a strong foundation with a total of $51.4 million and an increased full-time headcount of 370 positions. We are committed to allocating our resources effectively to advance the department's mission and to help create a more affordable, equitable city for all New Yorkers. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm just going to ask Council to swear you guys in before we start the question.
Good morning.
Good
Could you please raise your right hand and state your name for the record?
City of Sherman.
David Parrish.
Edith Suchen.
Thank you. And do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth in your testimony this morning and in response to council member questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Thank you for your testimony, Commissioner. Just want to state for the record, we've been joined by Minority Leader David Carr and also Councilmember Justin Sanchez. All right. So my first line of question, I really want to focus on staffing and resources. It's a concern for many council members who are leading neighborhood rezoning projects like myself in the Bronx. So DCP and the borough offices. The DCP borough offices are responsible for both neighborhood planning and working with private applicants to shape individual rezoning application. This work is very essential to addressing our housing crisis and support equitable development that uplifts all of New Yorkers. However, the borough offices are understaffed and under-resourced for this important mission. Many small cities around the country, cities smaller than New York City, council districts have more planners on staff than DCP borough offices. For example, in the Bronx, serving 1.4 million residents, has only 16 budgeted staffers at this time. With this small staff, it's not clear if the office has the capacity to undertake more than one neighborhood rezoning at a given time. There's a clear consensus that New York City must aggressively plan to increase our housing supply, yet there is no proposed change to current staffing levels. So with that being said, Commissioner, does DCP believe that the borough offices have sufficient resources to meet this moment? And if yes, can you let us know why you believe so?
Sure, I'll start and then I'll turn over to our Chief Operating Officer. So I think as you heard from my testimony, overall, while we've had a net loss of 5.3 million, a lot of it was driven by temporary funding that has since expired. So the organization essentially is in somewhat of a steady state with a net increase of 6 heads. However, certainly I know that we need resources to do the work that we're charged to do moving forward. I feel confident that we will be able to carry out the work. Obviously, I'm in my 6th day and certainly still assessing the needs across the organization. And as we go through this budget process, we'll remain in conversation with OMB around what we see. But at our current state, we within our organization between central office and the borough offices, we certainly see that we would be confident in carrying this work out. I'll turn over to our Chief Operating Officer to talk a little bit more about staffing in the borough offices.
Excuse me, could you just move the microphones closer to you?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Chairman Riley. This is a very important issue for us. I think, as you've already seen, we've also engaged staff at our central office, particularly in community engagement, capital planning, our policy divisions like housing, zoning, et cetera, to support our borough office staff. So we all hear you and understand the importance of the borough staff and agree.
Do you have a breakdown by each borough, how much staff is in each borough office?
I can get that back to you.
Okay.
I believe we shared some data with the committee beforehand, but we can get that to you.
Okay. And I believe you. I would not say that even though you guys are short staffed, you guys have been working tremendously with me in the Bronx. But this is important work that we have to do. I think everyone's message has been affordability. We have to build more. We have to develop more. And we know how important your role is in this. So as we're asking these questions, I just want you to be ensured that we understand the important role, and we want everyone else to understand the important role and provide you with the resources that you need. Okay. So as of January 2026, DCP has a vacancy rate of 16.3%, over triple the average vacancy rate across of all city agencies, which is alarming. With similar vacancy rates over the last 6 fiscal years, are there any specific roles or divisions that are driving these vacancies?
So I can share, obviously, addressing vacancies will be a priority for me, and I know that there are a number of efforts already underway to do so. I think our Chief Operating Officer can share a little bit more about what the pure vacancy rate is.
Yeah, let me break that down a little further. We began fiscal year 26 with 364 position. We've been gratified to receive 6 additional, so now we're at 370. And as of February, we had 300 active employees, 4 on leave, leaving us with 69 vacancies, or about 19%. Within that, though, within those 69, we have one person pending payroll, 2 pending OMB approval, And out of the 46 remaining, 23 are posted and actively recruiting. 20 are unfunded from former grants completed projects, leaving us with an adjusted vacancy rate of about 12%. I just wanted to note we've taken extraordinary efforts to think about how to improve our hiring by working with DCAS to look at civil service specs, to come up with a fellows program, and think of new ways to onboard folks more quickly. That work continues.
And do you have a breakdown of the specific roles that you're looking for within those vacancies?
So across the agency, if we look at our borough offices, our central teams, our technical teams, the vacancy rate is pretty steady across all of those groups. So we're hiring a little bit on every team.
What is DCP doing to reduce vacancies that could expedite the neighborhood studies and rezonings?
So one thing, we're gratified that DCAS came out with the civil service list for city planner at the end of last calendar year. We've already completed our first round of civil service hiring pools. That process, if utilized consistently, will allow us to fill vacancies quickly, and we look forward to doing more of that this calendar year.
Is there any barriers that you see that are leading to the struggle of filling these vacancies?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment? Okay. The median number of days for simple zoning action projects to enter public review was 308 for the first 4 months of fiscal year 2026. This represents a 19.8% increase over the same period in fiscal year 2025. The median number of days for projects requiring environmental quality review increased by 162.9% from 278 days during the first 4 months of fiscal year 2025 to 731 in the first 4 months of fiscal year 2026. We also hear from developers that DCP continues to lack the basic staffing necessary to quickly move applications forward. Is DCP considering increasing staff and or other resources in order to speed up applications during this process?
Thank you, Chair Riley. Again, I think we heard you very clearly. We have a mandate to both speed up applications to allow private actors to build more housing while focus on proactive neighborhood planning. And so this is really important for us. Since the start of the administration, Mayor Mamdani has put forward the Speed Task Force that's targeted to push agencies to build homes faster to reduce red tape. For us, one of the signature issues that will help improve those numbers you just cited connects to the governor's push for her Let Them Build agenda to streamline environmental review. We believe that if this change happens, it will take our 2-year process and allow us to shrink down to a 6-month process, speeding up the overall flow of applications and reducing the staff time required for each individual application. We think this is a huge innovation. We're working to implement that while at the same time trying to keep on top of these stats that you mentioned and push applications out. On the specifics, I wanted to note for zoning actions with EAS, we think improving the environmental review process, that really is the critical path for these projects and drives them to be several years long. It requires interagency coordination, detailed review, and is really hard to expedite on our own. So that systematic change from the state would be very welcome. On simple zoning actions, I'll note that while we are still below goal, we've improved each of the last 3 fiscal years. From FY23, we're at 57%. Last year, we closed at 64%. And while we have work to do to improve this year, I'll note that we are ahead in the number of applications processed. So we're trying to get things out of our system. Some of those have been delayed for a long time, which leads to a lower on-time completion rate. But we're working on this.
And you touched on the environmental. We're going to touch on that a little bit later. But going into the new administration, is the new administration currently preparing a citywide housing agenda?
Yes, there is work underway to prepare a citywide housing agenda. There's also work underway, as you know, in alignment with the council's legislation to prepare an updated fair housing plan as well.
If so, can you discuss DCP's role in this plan?
Sure. So as one of the many agencies that contributes to housing in the city, we're certainly, working with City Hall to contribute ideas, as well as on the fair housing front. I don't know if Executive Director Suchan, if you want to
Sure.
jump in.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair
Thank you,
Riley.
Edith. If you could just,
Sure,
thank you,
thank you.
Edith.
Good morning, Chair Riley and all City Council members. Good to be here with you today. We took a historic step with City of Yes and the neighborhood plans to unlock housing across the city. We are committed to doing yet more bold actions. This includes more neighborhood plans, text and zoning changes. We are streamlining how we work, and we are working hard to activate city-owned sites. We greatly appreciate City Council's partnership in everything we do, and we look forward to talking with you about what more we can do together.
That was my next question. So you guys are planning on engaging with stakeholders like City Council in developing this new housing plan?
We are partnership with City Council is critical in everything we do. So you can rest assured that we will continue our collaboration and discussions with you.
Okay. Are you guys considering any further text amendments for the City of X proposal?
Um, uh, there's still to be seen what text amendments we will pursue.
Sorry, Edith. I
Oh,
need
yes.
you to talk right into the mic.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
So
Excuse
sorry.
me. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. We're still assessing what specific text amendments we will pursue. Certainly, City of Yes was a huge undertaking, and we're seeing really a great strides already in the past year and in just a few months. The signs are really good. We really need to unlock housing across the city. The housing shortage is a citywide problem. We need citywide solutions.
Okay. And I have to go back into staffing. Sorry.
Sure. Okay.
So, returning to the question on staffing and resources, being that we are going to be coming up with bold plans, that means we're going to need, more hands on deck. So within that, is DCP thinking about personal necessities for the implementation of this new housing plan? Because it seems pretty simple that if we're looking to increase development opportunities around the city, we're going to need more planners.
Well, we heard from David about different strategies, and I love what you said earlier, Chair Riley, that we need much more planning, not less.
Yeah.
But we also need a lot more smart planning, and we believe with City of Yes and with the charter reform, we have a lot of new tools that are letting us advance more projects at speed and at scale. We need every tool we can get to advance to alleviate the housing crisis.
Okay. Um, Going to neighborhood rezonings. Neighborhood rezonings deliver thousands of homes. We all know that, right? Paired with comprehensive planning for infrastructure and services, and are an essential tool for the solving New York City's housing affordability crisis. What role does DCP see for the neighborhood rezoning in this coming term, and how many neighborhood rezonings are you planning to undertake this term?
Okay. Well, I'll jump in.
Sure.
So right now we're still determining the amount and volume and of rezonings to pursue and neighborhood planning efforts to pursue, but that will still continue to be certainly a priority of our work. And obviously, we are also focused on efforts in communities that have not contributed fairly to the city's affordable housing supply and housing supply overall in the past. I'll turn it over to Executive Director Suchat.
I don't think I have anything to
Okay,
add.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I mean, so you don't have a number?
We don't have a
You don't?
specific number per se.
I think
but we wanna
5
be
between 10 should be a good amount. Just
Duly
putting
noted.
that on record, okay? I mean, we have to build as much as possible, so.
Agreed.
Thank you. So, as you have heard, we have said many, many times, we need more housing, but housing alone is not enough. Residents need access to essential services, such as schools, open space, daycare, transportation, and libraries. My question is, how does the new administration plan on funding these infrastructure investments when pursuing neighborhood rezoning?
I can start with that. In no world would a neighborhood plan, an ambitious neighborhood plan, advance without the necessary capital investments. We do holistic planning. It's really important that we're just more than just dialing up the densities for housing, that we're looking at every single neighborhood need and services. So David has more on this.
As we did previously, we look at everything from school capacity to transit to the public realm, open space. Those are tenets that we expect to continue in this administration, and also thinking about areas that have experienced disinvestment and have significant resiliency needs. So we intend to continue that holistic plan.
Do you guys have indication where the money's coming from? I could give an example because I know during the De Blasio administration there was a dedicated $1 billion fund for neighborhood rezonings. So just wanted to know if you guys have any commitment, and if so, where would the money exactly be coming from?
So the money will come from a variety of sources. Once we agree on projects with individual council members, the projects will be funded. Sometimes these projects are funded through new needs. Sometimes these projects are funded through existing agency budgets. But we work holistically across the city and with members to make commitments and then fund those commitments once we've made them. I also want to note that we've refreshed the neighborhood commitments tracker, which is hosted by the Mayor's Office of Operations, and we ensure is kept up to date.
Yeah. And I would just want to encourage the administration if they could set aside a specific number, because we are asking for more density within communities. We all want to play a very important role with adding housing, but we have to go back to our communities and we also have to give back. Our communities are struggling when it comes to school seats. They're struggling when it comes to infrastructure. They're struggling when it comes to transportation. So we just want to ask the administration if they could set aside a specific number for these neighborhood rezonings if we're going to make that commitment. So I just wanted to go to the Sunnyside Yards proposal. I know Chair Lewis, if she was here, she would want to touch on some of these questions. So did DCP have any role developing or evaluating that Sunnyside Yards proposal that Mayor Mamdani raised with President Trump last month?
Yes, we all know that Mayor Mamdani traveled to Washington to speak to the president about potential investment, federal funding to redevelop Sunnyside Yard to deliver over 12,000 new homes. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, but it's very early days. We have not been any discussions about land use actions that would be necessary to carry out the plan. But we will be sure to talk to you all as plans further develop.
Because of the unit count, was that the reason why that was brought up to the president? Because it was 12,000 units, and why it was asked for federal funding?
There is federal property interest at Sunnyside Yard,
Okay.
and 12,000 was a unit count that was put forward in a plan developed by the city. What year? In the prior administration. Two prior administrations, perhaps.
I've heard an estimate of $14 billion investment in this project. Is that true? It will take about $14 billion federal dollars from the federal government?
It's to be determined.
To be determined? Okay. Rather than investing all the money into a new community project, why would we not invest more in our current communities? And if the answer is that the plan is to do both, then I want to know what funding this administration setting aside to invest in our communities would be.
Funding is important for all neighborhood plans. So whether a Sunnyside Yard is advancing alongside a neighborhood plan, there will be a very close examination into what capital investments are needed.
Okay. I just want to state for the record, we've been joined by Councilmember Caban. I'm just going to ask a couple more questions, then I'm going to turn over to the committee to see if any members have questions. Turn over to the City of Yes neighborhood rezoning commitments and my project, White Plains Road. Near the end of the prior term, DCP committed to undertake neighborhood planning in Coney Island Avenue, area south of Prospect Park, East Flatbush, and Fordham Landing, Park Avenue, and White Plains Road in the Bronx. Is DCP currently moving forward with these planning areas?
Yes, we've been working hard to fulfill our commitments that we made to the City Council to initiate studies and public engagement in the Bronx and in Brooklyn. All of this has been a very positive experience collaborating with you. As we begin the new year with our new commissioner, and we're ready to talk with you about next steps.
Okay, so I want to talk about my project, the White Plains Road Plan. So we started off really strong. I feel like we really started strong, but recently it feels like we're kind of slowing back, and just want to understand why that's happening. When we first announced an initiative, we understood, and we asked our community to help us deliver as much density as possible. My experience with White Plains Road seems that the perfect example of the Bronx Borough office at DCP not having enough planners. We're trying to have a very ambitious plan over at White Plains Road, but recently it seems like we're kind of slowing back. Even though you guys have been tremendous within the borough office, they're just taking on a lot of work at that time. So if we are serious about building more housing and investing in our neighborhoods, I don't want us to slow down with projects like White Plains Road in my and Councilmember Dinner's district. So can you tell me why DCP and this administration is not pushing this rezoning forward? And I would like a commitment from you today, if possible, that starting tomorrow, this rezoning will become a priority for DCP and the administration.
Sorry. Well, sorry. We appreciate so much, Chair Riley, that you recommended that we take a look at White Plains Road. Again, the best starting point for any effort is partnership with City Council. We did launch the neighborhood planning process last year. We've had ongoing engagement. In fact, we just had a meeting, community meeting on March 10th. So planning and efforts are continuing.
And I would just add, Chair, I haven't, obviously, I'm getting up to speed on the work on White Plains. I haven't had a chance to go to the community meetings, but certainly would make a commitment to come out to the district and really understand what the issues are.
Thank
and
you.
also make sure that as those conversations continue, that we have the support needed for the team members in the Bronx to make sure that those are robust sessions.
Thank you, Commissioner. We're looking forward to seeing you up there. I think the community would love to have you up there. It will show a good sign of faith. I'm going to take a pause on my questioning. I'm going to turn it over to council members who have questions. We've also been joined by Council Member Phil Wong. We're going to start with Council Member Encarnacion, followed by Thomas Henry, and then Salam.
Good morning. I want to thank the chair for talking so much about the neighborhood studies. Some of my questions were around that, so some of them were already answered. But I did want to ask around DCP's prioritizing and analyzing neighborhoods with high immigration population. Given the hardships that are faced by immigrant New Yorkers, can you talk a little bit about how you identify those and if that's a consideration of DCP when looking at neighborhoods to study?
When we do neighborhood planning, we are looking to improve the lives for all New Yorkers. All New Yorkers. It's a big city, very diverse city. There are many communities across New York City that haven't had the attention that they deserve historically, and certainly we are laser focused on making sure that we are delivering the best planning across the board. And this includes many communities that have higher rate of immigrants. So yes, this is something that we keep in mind.
And do you collect individual level data about immigration status when you do these studies?
Oh, not when we deal with neighborhood studies per se, but as you all know, the Department of City Planning, we do have a population division. We are very proud of the work that our population division takes on. It's one of the few planning agencies in the nation that has a specialized population and demographics team. And they are very hard at work in making sure that our census work is thorough, complete, and every New Yorker is counted.
And do you know if they collect individual level data and if it's electronic or physical, and if it is indeed protected by our in accordance with our sanctuary city policies?
Oh, everything we do is in accordance with sanctuary city policies. And with respect to your question about, we do not collect individual data as we engage with the community.
Sorry, I thought I put it off. And the private companies that you contract with, they are also not sharing any data or anything like that, right? You don't have to ask the question, so it's okay if you repeat the answers and they're all yes. That's fine. I just have to ask the question.
Yeah, absolutely not. The consultants we work with are not collecting individual data on immigration status.
Okay, now I know DCP recently updated its bed to population ratio calculation. It helps inform housing shelter placements. How do you plan to regularly assess and update those numbers so that the shelters are fairly distributed across the city?
We've gone through an effort working with our partners and other city agencies where in the past we would make one-time requests of data. We've actually signed MOUs with agencies to get that data on a more regular basis so that we can ensure that it's updated annually. So it's really important, as you note, to get that updated frequently as required. But it takes in pooling data from DHS, from Health and Hospitals, New York State, Department of Corrections. And so what we've done is try to build a smoother, more regular pipeline so that we can pull that data together quickly.
So regularly is quarterly, possibly, or mid-year?
We're going to start annually, and then if we can get more frequency with the state, we'll try to do that.
Okay. Now I know
Open
that.
to talking to you about that, council member.
Thank you. I know that DCP also recently dissolved the Urban Design Division before the inauguration of the current mayoral administration. Do you have plans to reverse the dismantling of the UDD?
Urban design remains a core value and function at the Department of City Planning. And what we did at the end of last year is that we actually enhanced and strengthened our ability to deliver good urban design at Department of City Planning. And we did this by shifting just 6 urban designers to other divisions. Many people do not know that we have over 25 urban designers and architects working at the Department of City Planning, distributed throughout many divisions. They have long been in borough offices and strategic planning offices. So at the end of last year, we shifted 6 urban designers to work on mission critical work directly in certain divisions.
So instead of having one division,
They're distributed throughout, and it's a model that we've had for many decades, very successful model, so we're expanding upon that model.
okay. And I know we're obviously facing a budget deficit. So many planners have discussed ending free parking in New York City as a way to raise revenue. Do you currently have plans to end free parking?
That's outside the purview of the Department of City Planning.
Okay. And wait, just want to make sure any of these are really, really, really important. I do have, oh no, this is for LPC, but not for you guys. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Councilmember Thomas Henry, followed by Salam, followed by Wong.
Thank you, Chair. My first question is around the neighborhood study done for Willets Point transformation. So they've 23 acres of approximately 61 acre footprint has begun with the first 880 affordable units opening this spring. Thank you. Have there been any other studies about acquiring and potentially developing the remaining acres that are out at that site?
We'll have to get back to you, not to my knowledge, but I will get back to you, council member.
And I guess in the process, in that neighborhood study, were there any environmental studies done with, in terms of once individuals do move into that site, because this is the first housing that will be over there, approximately 2,500 units, if the existing conditions remain, which are largely auto body mechanic shops, some construction plants and others, what the environmental impacts will be to those new residents?
An extensive environmental review was conducted with the Willets Point proposals, and all mitigations are required to be carried out. But there was an extensive review, environmental review.
Okay.
I will get back to you if you have further questions.
Okay. My next is regarding the Sunnyside plan. Because this plan seems to be heavily reliant on federal funds, would we have to adhere solely to the federal DBE program, which recently has been revamped to exclude women and minorities as part of the criteria, or could we use our MWBE program that we currently use to ensure 30% participation?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it's still to be determined what the restrictions may or may not be with respect to federal funds. Obviously, the city is still carrying out its MWB program, and our chief operating officer can share more of our work.
I was just going to add that it would depend whether federal funds come from existing grant channels through some other process, et cetera. So a lot to be determined in determining what the federal need is and what funding would be used to meet that need.
Thank you, Chair. That's all I have at the moment.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Salon, followed by Councilmember Wong.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your testimony. Just a few questions. I want to start with housing production. Land use actions projected to produce homes declined 69.1% in the first 4 months of fiscal year 26. How does the department plan to reverse this trend? And does the proposed budget additions, census updates, city map amendments, and so forth adequately support housing development goals?
Sure, we can start with an update on just your first question regarding applications.
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to note, I believe that's MMR data, and that data includes projects put forward by the department, so large rezonings and our City of Yes proposal. So we would expect a decrease in the first quarter MMR.
And then can you repeat the second part of your question, Councilmember? I'm sorry.
Yes, the second part is, how does the department plan to reverse this trend? Well, second part to that part, does the proposed budget additions, census updates, city map amendments, and so forth adequately support housing development goals? The housing.
Understood. So as noted, within our prelim budget, there is additional funding to support census work as well as the map updates that are required by DCP. In totality, a number of the actions that we're taking forward with respect to the recently passed city charter amendments as well as City of Yes, overall will help the city increase its overall affordable housing supply and housing supply.
And regarding professional services reduction, why is the professional services, engineering, and architectural services budget declining from $10.8 million fiscal year 26 to $3.8 million fiscal year 27? And what projects or services will be reduced?
Thank you for that, Councilmember. I appreciate your eagle-eyed attention to that. So those are project funds that fund environmental impact statement consulting. So as we work with council members on each rezoning, we size a pot of funding necessary to pay for the environmental review for that project. As you noted, we have a steady state budget of about $3.6 million for the next few fiscal years. But as we work with the council and the administration to greenlight neighborhood studies, that budget will be right-sized in later years as we go. So I think it's just the nature of where we are in the cycle.
Thank you. And regarding borough office vacancies, borough offices show vacancy rates ranging from 9.5 in Manhattan to 25%, 9.5% in Manhattan to 25% in Staten Island. Why is the disparity so significant, and how will the budget address these gaps?
Yeah, I think generally we're talking about a handful of individuals in each borough office. In Staten Island, it's 3 individuals, which is 25% of the office. There, I'd note in the last administration, we passed a zoning text amendment that reduces the number of private applications coming to that team. You know, it is, we hear the council clearly that the need to fill our positions is paramount, but the rate of vacancies across teams, I would say, is generally pretty standard across all 5.
Thank you. And lastly, regarding the zoning review timeline, the department's target for simple zoning actions is 365 days to enter public review. Current performance shows increasing delays. Should the fiscal year 2027 budget include additional staffing for the zoning division?
So I think, again, with this, we are thinking about how to deploy our resources more strategically as part of the mayor's speed process. We do think that there could be time savings that lead to additional staff capacity with changes through environmental review. And we have worked steadily over the last 3 years to improve this timeline. I just want to note with the decrease this PMMR, so the last 4 months, I believe, we processed, 25 projects this go round, where last year at the same time we had done 18. and some of the 25 were older projects that had been in the queue for a long time. So we're trying to clear our backlog right now, which unfortunately has led to a number of projects being completed that are also behind schedule.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Wong, followed by Minority Leader Carr.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director Shu Chen, for coming, and the members of the panel for coming. I have a few questions regarding outer borough zoning and regarding carbon neutrality on lithium-ion battery plants. I represent Middle Village, Maspeth, Glendale, Elmhurst, Rico Park, and Ridgewood, neighborhoods that work with the city, plan responsibly, and fought hard for zoning that actually fits their communities. And now they're watching all of that get overridden. City of Yes is not planning with communities, is forcing change into neighborhoods that never asked for it and cannot support it. We're talking about areas in my district where infrastructure is already strained. Sewer lines, traffic, schools, parking, public safety. These are daily realities and not hypotheticals. And instead of addressing those issues, the city is adding more density, more pressure, and more uncertainty. Nowhere is that clearer than with the City of Yes for carbon neutrality. And because in my district, we now have a lithium-ion battery facility being pushed as of right directly across from a school, near residential homes, small businesses, and a daycare. No meaningful community input, no local reviews, no real say. And all that is a direct result of decisions made by this agency. And from where I sit, this is not thoughtful planning. This is a one-size-fits-all policy being forced into neighborhoods that are already at the limit. And I want answers on how we got here. My first question is on forced zoning. Why is DCP overriding locally planned zoning in communities that are already downzoned? Can you answer that, please?
Happy to answer. Thank you, Council Member. City of Yes was a historic achievement that we did in partnership with City Council. We have a citywide housing crisis, and we need citywide solutions. And the City of Yes approach was about delivering a little more housing in every neighborhood. So in the lower and mid density areas, you're seeing the return, the relegalization of missing middle housing. For example, those 3, 4, and 5-story beloved buildings on corridors in the boroughs. We also allowed for accessory dwelling units, which is giving homeowners more flexibility and opportunities to provide opportunities for families to stay together, or perhaps even some rental income. There were many moves in the City of Yes. And again, we did a lot of outreach across the city in every single community district and with all council members. With respect to City of Yes for carbon neutrality, yes, battery energy storage systems was included in City of Yes for carbon neutrality expanding their allowance in other neighborhoods. Battery energy storage systems have long been allowed in New York City in commercial manufacturing areas. They're a really important tool to get our city to carbon neutrality. So we did expand their allowance into residential neighborhoods, but these systems require extensive oversight by the FDNY and DOB, not just in their application phase, but also in their installation. There's been no fire incidents in the city of New York for the BESS.
Okay. Did the city planning analyze placing lithium-ion facilities next to schools? Yes or no? Because this is happening right now. They're talking about constructions across the street, PS 128, Middle Village.
There was a very close look at BESS across the city and in various zoning districts. Again, these are safe when they are installed correctly and properly, and they are indeed in New York City with the extensive oversight by the FDNY and DOB.
Do you believe a battery storage site next to a school is appropriate?
Yes, given their track record, yes, I do believe they are appropriate. And in fact, schools can benefit from BESSs as well.
How did you conclude there was no risk on these facilities?
We can get back to you with more information, but we certainly would not be citing any facility that is dangerous to a sensitive use, such as schools. We would not be facilitating that through zoning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Wan. Minority Leader Carr. And I just want to state for the record, we've been joined by Councilmember Zhuang.
Thank you so much, Chair Riley. I just want to associate myself with the comments on BESS by my colleague, Councilmember Wong. There is no other example where, we literally permit something to be constructed in all zoning areas, unlike BESS. So this is a sort of an exception, I think, to our approach to zoning citywide, and I think it's an unfortunate one. And even if you want to dismiss the safety concerns, which frankly I don't think we should be dismissing them, but even if you did, there's something to the notion of planning, which I'm sure is an idea that you're committed to being committed to. And I feel that we absolutely need to think about what's the best use for our sites. And to say that a BESS could literally go up anywhere in the city based on the zoning type there, I think that's a ridiculous proposition. But we'll agree to disagree on that for now. I want to talk a little bit about ELRP and the changes that are now upon us due to the recent charter revision. And in particular, I'm concerned because the commission and city planning now has significant more power and responsibility over the course of rezonings than they did previously. And I think there's going to be a resulting concern from the community and the stakeholders and neighborhoods about transparency and whether or not they're being heard as a part of this new ELR process. So I just wanted to ask, if you're part of this process is to determine whether there's adequate existing transportation and sewer infrastructure in determining the course of an ELR project. Can you explain how you're going to do this and what staff determinations may have to be made in order to reach that point?
Thank you for your question, Council Member. Thank you. Thank you for your question. I think the battery is fading. Okay. Oh, here we go. Thank you. All right. Thank you. With ELRP, New York City voters voted for a faster way to approve housing and resiliency projects. There are very clear eligibility criteria for the housing projects. In the low-density areas, we're talking about modestly up to 2 FAR or 45 feet in height. In higher density areas, we're talking about an increase up to 30% of the allowed density. What ELRP does, it reduces the extensive 7-month review process to 90 days. And this is a really, really important tool. This is a really important thing to do as we're trying to deliver more housing in New York City. I'm so happy Councilmember Encarnacion is back in the room because it was my honor to stand with her on Powers Avenue last month when we launched with HPD an ELRP that will result in the transformation of an underutilized city parking lot into a mixed-use development with 84 new homes, permanently affordable homes, as well as with some community uses. So we look forward to seeing more ELRPs deliver more housing for New Yorkers.
I understand that there was the criteria that you were referencing in determining whether something's even eligible for ELRP, but my understanding is that there's also going to be an assessment of infrastructure that goes along with that, and that's up to city planning to make. So I was wondering if you can elaborate on how that part of the process is going to be approached.
The eligibility criteria for ELRP is really for the more modestly sized housing proposals. And of course, also for the resiliency projects. For larger neighborhood initiatives, we would absolutely be looking across the board at the infrastructure needs, the community needs. So that remains a very strong practice at Department of City Planning.
So in terms of when an ELRP is underway, right, what's going to be city planning's approach to community consultation and their part in this process?
ELERP retains the review period for community boards and borough president. So that, when a project is ready, the application's ready to be referred out, it goes to the community board and to the borough president for their simultaneous review, 60-day review, and then it comes to city planning.
I think the issue though with the process, right, is that in the past that community boards, sometimes even borough presidents, would opine on the details of a particular project, and they would go unheeded by the time the commission did its vote. Maybe there'd be some minor modifications, and then it would come to the council. And the community's perspective was that we, the council members representing the area, would champion that local perspective. That's no longer going to exist here. Right, so I'm asking what you're going to do differently in terms of how you listen and process and digest what the local input is, whether it's the board's official opinion or what's said at the board by members of the community, because members of the community don't have the ability to come to city planning to repeat their testimony. They're giving their testimony to the board.
Sure. I would just add, of course, with the understanding that these are still modest projects that would go through ELERP. It will be important to the team at DCP as we're working to route these applications that we are also engaging community members and making sure that that happens up into the certification process. Obviously, as Edith noted, there's the community board and the borough president process, and there's still the CPC process, right? Making sure that we're listening to the public testimony and taking that seriously. As chair of the CPC, I will ensure that we're taking everyone's testimony to count.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Minority Leader. Just to continue on ELERPs, how many ELERPs have happened so far, and how many are in the pipeline?
To date, To date, there have been 3 ELERP applications launched into public review. The first one I referred to earlier in the Bronx on Powers Ave. That's an HPD-led ELERP. And at City Planning, we have 2 active ELERPs in the pipeline. One on Staten Island that will facilitate the acquisition of more land for the Sawmill Creek Park to help with conservation and preservation in that area.
Okay. Can you discuss how many how many units these ELERPs usually produce?
I don't know if there is an average per se because each ELERP will be different. In the Bronx on Powers Ave, that was a proposal that's going to lead to 84 permanently income restricted units.
Okay, and the one in Staten Island?
The one in Staten Island is to facilitate the expansion of a park. So that is not a housing project, but that is a resiliency project also allowed under ELERP.
Okay. Going into community engagement, because I think that's what Minority Leader Carr was going into. During the public review process during the City of Yes, you guys had the opportunity to go through 59 community boards throughout New York City. After visiting all 59 community boards multiple times, could you guys attest if there's any lessons learned about how community board trainings and engagements can be improved? And compared to last year, has DCP staffing for community engagement increased or decreased?
Engagement with community is such an important thing what we do. It is a top priority. Working with our community boards across the Thank you. Okay. We meet regularly with the community boards for training. There's a lot of technical information in zoning, so we want to make sure that we're all, speaking the same language. We do extensive training with the community boards, and we have a public engagement team at City Planning, which has been expanding our reach across all community stakeholders.
Has the team increased or decreased since last year?
Our team has actually increased.
Increased, okay.
And I would just add, Chair, very early in my career, I started a lot of my work training community boards, helping them to understand planning, helping to demystify planning. And so I think as we continue this work with a community focus, that will certainly be a priority.
And just want to emphasize the importance of it. I just think if community boards are engaged more with understanding the need that New York City needs right now and the type of resources that are usually needed for big planning within their communities, I think it'll be much helpful when we're going through these little projects or within these projects with them. Just wanted to speak, go back to the Sunnyside project for a little bit. Do you believe New York City has a good track record delivering affordable housing through the platforms of train yards?
Well, I mean, we have few examples, but I think that there is
What few examples do you have? Do you
well,
think we have a good track
we have
record?
Atlantic Yards is I understand that that is one of the few examples. I do think, however, we have a clear commitment in this administration to addressing affordability. We also have a sentiment across New York City where people understand the importance of affordable housing. And so, you know, I know that this is still to be determined, but you know, there's a pursuit to make sure that whatever we move forward with and whatever we commit to is realized.
So I know we had Hudson Yards and we have Atlantic Yards. Do you know how much affordable housing was built on Hudson Yards and how much affordable housing was built on Atlantic Yards?
We can get back to you with those specific numbers, but certainly there were affordable housing commitments as part of those plans. And now in this era where we are maximizing and doing everything we can to deliver affordable housing, it is a top priority for us that we're making sure that we're maximizing affordable housing opportunities on redevelopment over rail yards.
Have economics of housing changed so much that you believe the administration would do any better in delivering affordable housing at Sunny Yards in Queens? Sunnyside Yards in Queens, excuse me.
Could you restate the question? Excuse me.
Have the economics of housing changed so much that you believe that the administration would do any better in delivering affordable housing at Sunnyside Yards in Queens?
I think it's still very early days for Sunnyside Yard, but I think we should be looking at all opportunities, especially big swings. You can deliver a lot of housing for New Yorkers.
Yeah, I mean the cost of building, insurance. We just want to know if the economics being changed in this current climate, if the administration is going to take any other different approach. I mean, 12,000 units is very ambitious. So
we're going to take all approaches across the city. Sunnyside Yard is just one thing that we are pursuing. But it is, rail yards do provide opportunity for us to think big. Atlantic Yards, Hudson Yards, even Grand Central, Midtown. Of course, that's primarily office space around Grand Central. But when New York City, when we, think big, we can deliver big.
want to go back to my favorite topic, staffing. Can you discuss the average salary of a planner at DCP?
I'll turn to our COO. We're pulling that information for you.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm glad to let you know that it has increased over the last few years, both with increased staff retention and the citywide economic agreement. Across our team, it's about $97,000.
Okay. Just want to highlight for the record, we're retention, we're planners. They're probably getting double in the private sector. Even though we want to do as much for public service, I just want to highlight that we're losing a lot of amazing planners to the private sectors because the pay is so low for them. So just want to highlight that for the record. Can you speak to how DCP utilizes outside and private consultants in day-to-day operations at city planning, whether that be in large neighborhood rezonings or any other process within DCP?
Yeah, we try to keep it minimal. We primarily use consultants for large-scale environmental impact statements for our neighborhood plans. And generally that's because they're of such scale, and we try to do those reviews quickly with council members and communities so they don't get stale and we can get through that.
Is there a set-aside budget for that?
Currently it's $3.6 million. As we've talked about, it fluctuates based on the plans we agree with council members to deliver.
I just want to touch on city-owned sites. Under the Adams administration, as an executive order, prioritizing housing production and accelerating the production of housing on city sites requires city agencies to identify public land suitable for new housing development to address the city's housing concerns. How many sites has DCP identified to date, and where are they located?
So, Chair, I know that on day one of this administration, the mayor put into effect the LIFT task force, which is focused on identifying city-owned sites, and we are contributing in part of that work. The goal is, I think the LIFT work should be wrapped up this summer, and we should be able to share more information about the sites that have been identified.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do you have a process to identify those sites?
So I know that this is happening across multiple city agencies, and I don't know if there's more to share, at least on the DCP end, but I think cities identifying the various sites that they own and operate.
Okay. I just want to state for record, we've been joined by Chair Lee and Majority Leader Sean Abreu. Okay. All right. So, going back to urban design, and urban design is very critical, and we heard you speak about it earlier with Councilmember Encarnacion. For providing a healthy environment is also crucial to maintaining public support for growth and development. How does DCP plan on having a coordinated urban design policy without a central urban design division? Can I get new mics, y'all?
Okay. Yes, thank you for your question. Again, urban design remains a core value and function at the Department of City Planning. We still have a chief urban designer at the department who has a general oversight across the urban design work across our agency. We have urban designers distributed throughout the agency, many divisions, and in every borough office and also strategic planning offices. Urban design is critical, and as you mentioned, Chair Riley, in making sure that we have buy-in and beautiful, great, livable neighborhoods. So this work that our urban designers are doing across the agency, they'll be doing this work from day one, from project inception across the agency. Okay.
I'd now like to ask a series of questions about the implementation of the effectiveness of the City of Yes reforms, starting with ADUs. ADUs are ADUs are a large percentage of the projected citywide increase in housing production from the City of Yes for housing opportunity. But the implementation has been slow, and we've seen some criticism from advocates that the regulations are too complex and costly. How many permits to date have been issued for ADUs?
Thank you for your question. We are very excited to say that we have over 150 ADU applications in the hopper right now. We've been doing a lot of work in the past year to make sure that folks seeking to build or provide an ADU have the tools. Just last week, the city launched a toolkit that has ready-to-go designs for ADUs and also guidance on financing these ADUs. Earlier last year, we promulgated rules to make sure ADUs are safe, and the ADU application portal was opened at DOB last fall. So we're really excited to see a lot of activity in the ADU applications.
Do you have a breakdown of the 150 borough-wide?
We have Queens and Staten Island leading the way. I will give you I can get you the specific numbers afterwards.
Is DCP involved in making sure NYC has a workable ADU regulations?
Absolutely. All these efforts are about making sure that we have not just workable, but easy to use and great regulations to help homeowners who want to provide an ADU provide one.
Thank you. And that's the website you just mentioned, right?
Yes, the website. Yes.
Okay, good. With that being said, I do want to commend the administration on the new website you just released for homeowners to navigate the process for ADUs. It has been very useful for those who are interested in it. Office conversions. Is DCP monitoring the progress on office conversion developments? And if so, are the zoning reforms from City of Yes and tax incentives proven to be effective in supporting increased conversions?
We are so excited to see the boom in office conversions with City of Yes regulations and the state's 460M state program. Together, we're seeing this incredible surge in delivering housing by repurposing vacant or low-performing office space.
Okay. Do you know how many office conversions have gone forward to date?
I don't know how many buildings per se, but I know that the pipeline it includes 12,000 new homes, a quarter of which are permanently income restricted.
Okay. City of Yes also included the transit-oriented development and town centers proposal to allow 3 to 5 story multifamily housing more broadly as of right in low-density areas. Is DCP monitoring the implementation and uptake by developers of these proposals, and how many TODs and town center proposals have been filed across the city to date?
We're working with DOB to compile the file permits at the locations, and we'll be able to share this with City Council soon. But we're really excited to see that the 3, 4, 5-story buildings that are long have been loved in New York City have been re-legalized, and we're seeing more housing developed across the city in these missing middle typologies.
Okay. I'm going to ask some questions on environmental review reform, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chair Lee to ask our questions.
Hi, how
Okay.
are you?
Oh, Chair-
Thank you.
one second.
Sorry.
I'll be right with you, Chair Lee. So, the governor is proposing to broadly exempt residential projects with up to 500 units from environmental review. Under the governor's proposal, developers would not even have to study ground, air, and noise pollution. This raises fundamental environmental justice concerns. What is DCP's position regarding the governor's proposal?
I just wanted to note that the governor's proposal, as I understand it, and their competing bills in Albany, focuses different housing limits in different density areas. So 500 would be in the most dense parts of the city, it would be lower elsewhere. And the proposals that I've seen apply to only areas where homes are being proposed in existing residential units, or existing residential districts. So today, as you can go and get a building permit in an area zoned for residential without doing those environmental reviews, this would be very similar to that.
So DCP is in favor of the governor's position?
We do think that this is a smart reform that will shorten our process and speed the creation of housing across the city.
Okay. When
I would just add that, as noted, right, much of this is still in the proposal phase, and so we're in conversations with the state, and we'll continue to work through the details.
Thank you. When DCP proposed Green Fast Track, it limited the exemption to projects to residential projects up to 250 units, which is half the size of what the governor is proposing. Why did DCP limit its exemption to 250 units, and does the extensive data analyze you perform establish that projects up to 500 units have no environmental impacts?
So we were proud to do research for Green Fast Track, but I think when looking at the Green Fast Track, we were looking within the universe of state SECRA law. So the things that we could not change despite the lack of mitigations for number of housing units. So we still, for example, had to go through certain processes, and there were limits that we could not overcome.
Okay. Just to push a little bit on that, so you were looking at the secret laws in order to come up with that presumption, but I think the pushback that we want to say within that is that within that exemption of the 250 units, do you feel like that is suitable for the Green Fast Track? Because there are a lot of members that have concerns about this. I think within this process, we're trying our best to make sure that we're investing as much in our communities as possible. We do understand that this is a process that takes a long period of time, but this is how a lot of those issues are going to be addressed. So being that you guys did look at that law, do you feel like that has been efficient to date?
David mentioned that when we proposed a green fast track, we were looking at it within the existing secra regulations. We have reviewed the governor's proposal and found that over the last 10 years, 99.6% of the projects that would qualify for the governor's proposal had no impacts. So that's virtually all of them had no impacts. Thank you.
Okay. The environmental review process is critical to addressing environmental justice needs and local infrastructure needs, specifically funding for our local parks and playgrounds. The creation of new open spaces, space for schools, and creating more early childhood facilities. By exempting the projects from environmental review, projects would no longer have to contribute towards the basic needs of our communities. If the governor's reform is passed, what is DCP's strategy to provide our communities with those needed investments, such as schools, parks, rezonings, libraries, and those facilities to make sure that our communities can still thrive with density?
So I think as Edith just noted, the vast majority of these projects do not have impacts today. And I think the answer to your question is thinking holistically about capital planning across our city, which is something we are strong advocates for in partnership with other agencies. We also look at this whenever we look closely at a neighborhood or through a citywide text to look at the provision of public services.
Okay. All right. I'm going to turn over to Chair Lee. I'm just going to ask if DCP could share that analysis of the 99.6 percentage. Chair Lee?
Sorry, my ears are half working these days. Thank you so much for being here. Just really quickly, who has been identified at DCP for the Chief Savings Officer?
Hi.
Oh, nice. Okay, great. I know that they were due last Friday, but are you able to share any of the proposals for savings within DCP's budget? And are you anticipating any potential revenue loss resulting from implementation of the savings plan?
So thank you, Councilmember. We took very seriously the guidelines in this proposal to find savings that were both sustainable but did not impact the provision of services. So
Right.
we do not expect services to be diminished or revenue to decrease.
Perfect. And especially if revenue generating positions are reduced, such as headcount for planning staff who facilitate neighborhood studies and rezonings, is that still also not going to impact?
That's correct.
Okay. The 2-for-1 hiring restrictions, is that still in place or?
Yes.
Okay. And when do you anticipate the timeline for?
So it was as part of the Chief Savings Officer program, the goal was to release agencies from the 2-for-1 hiring freeze.
Okay. Sorry, just going to the OMB report, because I know that it's in the financial summary, the headcount is pretty much the same. It seems to be one position difference between FY 26 and 27, but there's quite a decrease in the overall budget. And I'm just wondering, I know you mentioned in your testimony that a lot of the decrease is due to the grants or temporary funding going away, but is there anything else that's in that, or is it mostly that reason?
That's the vast majority. Two big things that I'll cite. Environmental consulting dollars that were for prior administration projects that are no longer needed. That's about almost $3 million, and $2.5 million is funding for the Jamaica rezoning that came through a federal grant, and that with the council we were excited to complete.
Yes, definitely. Okay, and then in the OTPS, what's the reason for, is it the same issue of that decrease? Is that also because of the funding going away, or is that a different category of funding?
That's the lion's share of it, right?
Okay.
That's, yeah.
Okay, and then in terms of the preliminary plan changes, I know that in FY 26, for new needs, it pretty much went up from 603 to 1.3, and then other adjustments also increased. And so I know in your testimony you've outlined funding for the census to address that. So is that most of the lion's share of where the new needs is going towards?
Yes, it's 716,007 headcount for the census.
760,000,
716,000.
16,000. Okay, and then what about the rest?
So
'Cause
we received 300,000 in personnel dollars to activate dormant headcount for city map changes.
dormant
out-
headcount for, I'm sorry.
for city map changes. So we are expected to take on address assignments by January of next year in the city map over the next 2 following years from the borough president. So we're working on establishing the plan for that with this early investment.
Okay, perfect. And then just in terms of the neighborhood planning, I know the neighborhood studies and subsequent rezoning and plans have a large economic impact by facilitating housing development and driving activity for small businesses and increasing the tax base. Have you evaluated the economic benefit that a fully staffed department would have on your ability to undertake a greater number of these plans? Because I know that it's going to increase.
So, we think these plans are tremendously impactful in different neighborhoods that we work in, both in adding both construction jobs and long-term jobs, and then homes for people during this significant housing crisis. We have not done a full economic impact, but we've looked to see the outcomes of our work, both in terms of jobs and housing, and we look forward to speaking to all council members. Speak to them.
Okay, so you have done a full impact study on it.
We have looked at the outcomes of past rezonings, correct?
Okay. And can you share what some of those would be?
Could you repeat the question?
Can you share what some of those would be?
I don't have that information with you. I'd have to get back to you.
Okay, perfect. And then what have been some of the impacts on city revenue from past rezonings like East New York or Inwood?
We at City Planning have not done an analysis of, I assume you're talking about tax revenue. We have not done that type of analysis.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll hear next from Councilmember Felder, followed by Majority Leader Brayu, then Councilmember Caban.
Thank you. First I want to address the comment. Before I start, congratulations.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you.
You know that you're only going to get complaints from everyone, including us. So,
Thank you.
so at least today, you're not getting any complaints. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's the nature. Your colleague had mentioned something about the voters of New York with the Charter Commission, and so I just want to comment on that. Is that I think I'm not looking for an answer because the thing is going to go off and we won't have time to debate it. But historically, first of all, the way the questions are asked, that's how the answers are given. And that's not my creation. That's a general statement. And that's how the charter questions go, since I can remember, depending on how the questions are asked, that's whether they get approved or not. So I don't believe that referring to the voters of New York approving the charter, and I have deep respect for the voters of New York, but I'd be willing to bet that if somebody spent time with the voters explaining in detail what they voted for, they would tell you that they had no understanding of that's what it meant, period. So that's that. Second, in terms of the comments that you made about reaching out to the community through the community board and the borough president, again, deepest respect for some of the community boards. I'm not speaking for my colleagues. I'm speaking for my own district. I have community boards that are very active and really do the job well. And clearly, I think your reference would have been accurate. And I have others that the time you spent with those community boards in those neighborhoods I don't know what they told you, but they have no idea what they're talking about, period. You call, so I don't think that, that you'd really get a good picture about what's going on. And what I would like to know, you know, here's the question. You know, all sorts of things go into the property, building, you know, whatever else. The thing that I do not hear is about the you know, they talk about parking, other things about play area for the children. That should be something that's part of the requirement, just like you know, you do anything else, unless there's a unless the, you know, that's not. I don't know what to tell you. To me, you know, I think it's critical. And I would just say is that under federal law, I keep on looking at the clock because I you know, depending on, you know, if I'm behaving or not, they make it go quicker when I'm talking or slower. Yeah. So no, I just wanted to tell you that in the city of New York, I dare say, and this has nothing to do with this administration, because you just started. In the city of New York, there are only 2 playgrounds in the entire city that accommodate disabled and special needs children. Every other playground accommodates them by having 1 red or orange, I'm not sure, swing. That's how they're accommodated. It's embarrassing and outrageous. And I dare criticize it because I have a grandchild with a disability. I had no idea until he was born what that meant. And the one is in Queens and one is in Felder's district, believe it or not. I would just ask and beg that be taken into consideration among your many priorities.
Thank you, Councilmember
Thank
Felder.
you, Councilmember, and absolutely you have our commitment to giving attention to that.
Next, we're going to hear from Majority Leader Abreu, followed by Caban and Thomas Henry.
Thank you, Chair Riley. Last year, DCP announced it was pursuing an initiative dubbed City of Yes for Families, with potential citywide zoning reforms to support uses like childcare facilities that help families stay in New York City. Is DCP still working on this initiative?
I think so much of our work is centered around making sure New York City is a great place for families, that they can stay, they can grow and flourish here. We are doing so much work across the board to make sure that this is the case. We've seen in our neighborhood plans the delivery of parks improvements, of schools, of safer streets. These are really important elements in making good neighborhoods.
Is the city pursuing this initiative dubbed City of Yes for Families?
We're pursuing many initiatives, maybe not under a specific
but this specific
umbrella
initiative that was dubbed City of Yes for Families in the past administration, is this administration taking on that specific initiative?
We are taking on many initiatives under the umbrella of making sure New York City is a great place for families.
Is there anything currently in place with respect to potential citywide zoning reforms to support uses like childcare facilities?
Well, I think we've all seen and heard that it is a top priority for this mayor, and we are seeing really exciting action to make sure daycare is much more affordable for New Yorkers.
It doesn't sound like to me that there is a current pursuit of this City of Yes for Families as was envisioned by the prior administration. Is that fair to say? Because you're not committing to whether or not you're following this specific initiative. It's okay if you're not.
We are following many of the initiatives that we were certainly that we're developing and developed under City of Yes for Families. It'll probably come under perhaps different branding or come under other initiatives. But we are 1,000% committed to making sure that New York City is a great place to grow families.
I understand there's a commitment to the
Yes.
issue, but it doesn't sound like there's something specific in the works right now.
Can I just
Please, yeah.
Can I just add whether it's being called City of Yes for Family? I think as the executive director shared, the components are in play, right?
Okay.
Making sure there are safer streets, making sure that we're taking into account school seats, all of the things that are needed to support thriving families, as well as making sure that we're facilitating access to the types of facilities that families need. I think it may not be called that same umbrella, but the components are moving.
But the components are a priority, and hopefully will be part of
And a
future
priority,
plans.
absolutely,
Okay, great. Regarding City of Yes implementation, the universal affordability preference from City of Yes created zoning incentives for affordable housing in all high-density districts, R6 or higher. Is DCP monitoring the implementation, and are developers using the UAP as expected?
Yes, we're very very excited to see that UAP is being taken up. We are seeing over 150 applications for UAP, so that's wonderful. We are collecting more and more data, working with DOB to be able to share out some more information about how UAP.
That's great. And 150 UAP applications across how many sites? Do you have that information?
I don't have that specific number, but we can get back to
If
you.
you can share that with this committee, that would be great. And my last question is on development on houses of worship. City of Yes implemented several zoning changes intended to make it easier for houses of worship to develop affordable housing. Are we seeing an increase in development of faith-based organization sites as a result of the City of Yes reforms?
Let me get back to you with specifics on sites and applications.
Sounds good. If you could just
Okay.
get that information to the chair, that would be great.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Councilmember Caban.
Thank you very much. So I want to start with asking about neighborhood plans. Obviously, they play a significant role in securing housing potential and neighborhood investment. What's the process DCP takes to make sure that the planning efforts are equitably distributed across the city?
We're taking a hard look across the city for opportunities for neighborhood planning. I think a top priority.
Like mine, we've got a neighborhood plan.
Well, thank you. Actually, thank you very much, Councilmember, for your community work on looking at Astoria and the surroundings.
Well, thanks to our land use division, because they did that. They saved you guys a lot of money by doing that in-house. So.
Well, it is certainly that's getting recommendations directly and work from council member is hugely important to us and certainly very motivating. When we're looking at opportunities across the city, we are certainly keeping our eye on areas that have historically under-delivered. So that is also one of our motivating factors.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that that's a motivating factor, but then there is the alternate issue of, like, for example, you have a district like mine or a district like CM1's where we're doing our fair share, and it is, housing development is exploding, but it is not happening in a way that really is grounded and rooted in community. And so while we will, there are plenty of us who will be like, yeah, some of these other districts need to do their fair share. While we're trying to do the right thing, we want to make sure that the administration has a plan for investing in our neighborhoods so that these rezonings are sort of community driven. So I guess that leads into my next question of, like, there's this issue where if there's an appetite for upzoning, like there is in my district, but only if there's funding for infrastructure, how are you considering that?
Yeah, so I think, Councilmember, to your point, we want to make sure we're taking a holistic approach. And so while there's a focus on communities that haven't delivered to the city's housing supply in the past, a community such as yours, we also want to make sure that we're working in partnership with you for communities where people may be experiencing displacement, development pressures, and making sure that we're taking a more holistic planning approach that also brings in the capital needs and all of the other components that come with a neighborhood plan. I think moving forward, right, it's sort of a twofold approach, looking at where there's needs, socioeconomic characteristics, all of the things that we know impact neighborhoods, as well as having a really important focus on communities that have not contributed in the past.
Well, we're ready, and so can I get a commitment from you guys to at least follow up with me on our district plan? Something that I'd really like to see done. We had a lot of community engagement on it, and some of the areas do also involve manufacturing. So I want to ask about manufacturing districts in general. That like there are rezonings in manufacturing districts that aren't prepared for residential. How does DCP plan for the infrastructure improvements needed in those areas?
I heard two questions, but I can do the second.
No, just okay. So there's the added challenge of where we're looking to rezone, right? In districts that have been heavily manufactured, but historically heavily manufactured. Like for example, in Astoria, we actually did, I think it was 2012, 2014, a redistricting of what was mostly manufacturing into residential, except there hasn't been any building. But with the surrounding area, also there are things that need to be done to make it livable as residential zoning. So whether it's there or in other places, when you're looking at those particular types of rezoning, where you're manufacturing districts that they're not prepared for residential necessarily, how do you plan for the infrastructure improvements in those areas when you're moving from manufacturing to residential?
Thank you, Council Member. With any major neighborhood plan, including rezoning from manufacturing to allow for residential, we take a hard look at the potential effects and the services and the infrastructure so that we are prepared to, and we're making sure that the area is ready for residents. With respect
what does that look like?
In many cases, it's an environmental review. The ULURPs that we've seen for transitioning manufacturing areas to deliver residential have had a very complete environmental review where we're looking at categories across the board.
Okay, and then what do you do once those environmental reviews are done? Like, what are some of the things that you are investing in and actually doing in those scenarios?
Well, there may be mitigations that are required in that environmental review, and mitigations are required to be carried out. They are, and with respect to industrial areas, not all industrial area is the same, right? So there are many areas that may be more ready and ripe for non-industrial uses. The City Council directed us at City Planning to work with our city agencies to develop a strategic plan, a policy plan for our industrial areas. And we're very pleased to report that just this past December, we issued the city's first strategic plan for the industrial sector, the industrial plan, as you all know. And one of the strategies laid out in the industrial plan is looking at areas and classifying them, whether they should remain core and primary for manufacturing or industrial, or secondary, or even areas that may be ready and more ready for non-industrial uses. So,
Chair, can I ask one more follow-up? So, and I also appreciate that there is a need to maintain and preserve some of our manufacturing areas, and shout out to Councilmember Gutierrez, who I think has done just like a lot of work on that front. But I just, in addition to environmental review, so I understand that districts are different. I just would love to know what some of the other concrete things that y'all are looking at or investing in when making those changes. So there's the environmental review. Are you doing street safety? Like what else is happening?
May I add one thing before the commissioner? Yeah. I was remiss to say that when we're doing, holistic neighborhood planning that's ushering in, major new uses, moving a manufacturing to housing, let's say, it's not just mitigations we're looking at. We do extensive and collaborative discussions with the community, with the stakeholders, and with the electeds to see what the needs are in these neighborhoods. So there are a number of commitments sometimes that come out of neighborhood plans, and we see them carried out through POA, which is tracked very closely by the City of New York.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Caban. Councilmember Thomas Henry.
Thank you, Chair. I do want to echo Councilman Felder's comment about playgrounds. I had a real life instance in my district with Willards Point. I took a tour a couple of months ago and asked that very question. It was 880 units. and no outdoor space for kids. And I'm happy to say when I went back around, they did designate an area outdoors specifically to build a playground. So I think this is something very important when we're thinking about building more units that are supposed to be family friendly, to make sure that there is outdoor space for those families. Kind of piggybacking off Councilmember Caban's question, when we do these planning, how does transportation come into play? And you probably don't have it now, but I would be interested in knowing the transportation plan for Willets Point. Currently, with the new bus redesign, there was a new bus route that was placed there, but the only train station is the number 7 line, which on a good day is terrible. And it's not ADA accessible. So curious to know how transportation comes in general with these neighborhood plans, but also if you guys could get back to me specifically with Willets, what the transportation plan is.
Sure. Transportation and access is key when we are planning anything in New York. We have a transportation division at the Department of City Planning, and overall our agency, we work very closely with the city's DOT and with MTA. We are just generally a transit-oriented development city. We should be more so. We should be taking all opportunities to leverage this incredible asset. It's really unparalleled, maybe in the world. We have an incredible transit system. It's not just subways, of course, it's bus and other modes of moving around. With every neighborhood plan, we make sure that there is good transit or improved transit so that we are maximizing we're leveraging transit and neighborhood planning to help each other.
And who can I follow up with for the Willets Point plan exactly? Okay. My last question is, last year, a former JFK Hilton Hotel in Queens was converted to over 300 units of affordable housing. As hotels seem to become the preference to house individuals, is there a long-term plan to do more conversions like this into affordable permanent housing?
We look to the property owners and operators. There's not a plan per se from our side to see more of those conversions.
As someone who lives near airport, I would like it, and a lot of those hotels have been converted. So if that is something that land use could look at, that would be great.
Thank you, Councilmember. Just wanted to touch on the racial equity reports. So under the leadership of Public Advocate Williams and then Committee Land Use Chair Salamanca, this council passed legislation requiring developers to conduct racial equity reports for large-scale developments. Chair, Commissioner, I know how important this is to you. A lot of times when we're doing these large rezonings, displacement is a word that tends to be put out there. Even when I'm thinking about my neighborhood planning, I don't want anyone to be displaced. So as we're doing these large plans, I just have a question. How does DCP continue to work with developers to ensure projects don't negatively affect minority communities?
Sure. So thank you for your question. And yes, this is obviously very important to me. I know that the racial equity reports went in effect in 2022. Since then, they have been used as a tool to help reach deliberation as applications go past certification. I know for the CPC and the City Council, for instance, they've been used to help reevaluate MIH levels in certain projects. And so we certainly want to make sure that that's a tool that we continue to use moving forward and strengthen.
Back to the housing strategy, as you guys are developing this, it's no secret housing projects face multi-year delays in receiving financial subsidies through HPD. Does DCP advocate for quicker closing on city-led development priorities, and if so, how do you do so?
So obviously there's a need to address the affordable housing crisis with the urgency New Yorkers deserve. I think on our end, right, we shared in this hearing some of the efforts that we have underway to at least help environmental review move along more quickly and some of the processes that we control. We're certainly, regularly in conversation with our colleagues at HPD to do whatever we can to support them as they work towards closing on projects.
Okay. Because usually, typically, after we close out of our hearings, it's taken years for developers even to get the shovel in the floor. So I know where everyone's thinking about units we have to produce, but just we also have to advocate for how long it takes for developers to actually build. So just wanted to put that out there on the record, Commissioner.
And I know it's been mentioned, the Speed Task Force, right, that has been launched. And
Yeah.
so there are multiple agencies that
Correct.
roll in the affordable housing pipeline. Everyone's at the table to figure out how we can do this more quickly.
Thank you. Fair housing framework. So, Local Law 167 of 2023, the Fair Housing Framework, is for the first time requiring a citywide analysis of housing needs and housing production targets for each community district to be released in October of 2026. In what capacity has DCP worked alongside HPD on this plan so far?
So I know the team at DCP has been hard at work, as well as our colleagues across the city, to develop such a comprehensive fair housing framework with, to your point, targets across districts. And so I can certainly, perhaps you could lend more on the collaboration with HPD.
We work very closely with HPD on a number of things, and certainly on this framework. This is, of course, a direct result of the City Council legislation, and we're really excited to use this framework to help us guide our work moving forward.
Does DCP have an adequate budget line for this framework?
Yes, and I would just add, fair housing is not ancillary to the work, right? It's core business. And so staff across the organization will be part of shaping this work.
Does DCP intend to use the community district targets as part of its evaluation of where to undertake neighborhood rezonings?
I think that should inform the work that we do, absolutely. Part of the city's fair housing goals are to address the patterns of segregation, make sure that we're working to connect people to high opportunity communities, addressing displacement. All of that should inform how we pursue neighborhood rezonings and planning efforts.
To piggyback off of Chair Caban, Chair Lewis wanted me to ask this specifically. Within her district, they are looking forward and moving forward with a neighborhood rezoning plan. But similar to my neighborhood rezoning, it's not receiving as much attention as possible from DCP. Can you please commit to moving forward with that attention and resources for the neighborhood plan in Councilmember Caban and Council Chair Lewis and Councilmember Joseph's district?
So it is exciting to me that there are a number of council members who are looking to proactively plan for their communities.
Means you have a lot of work to do.
Yes, and so as noted, obviously, just got here, certainly assessing where we will go, but happy to get out to everyone's district and really understand what the issues are, so we can make sure to prioritize that in our early days.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just have two more questions. This is from Councilmember Brooks Powers. She wanted me to ask these two questions on her behalf. As a part of the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity, DCP has begun approving accessory dwelling units by law. ADUs in the basements, cellars, or backyards are not permitted if they are located in coastal and inland flood areas. How is DCP coordinating with DEP to ensure that all new ADU construction is environmentally feasible and safe for residents and their neighborhoods?
Sure, we can share more about the criteria.
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, we have been hard at work promulgating very strict rules for safety of ADUs. This is coming out of after the City of Yes legislation legalized ADUs. We have to make sure that all of these are safe. So we have worked very closely with the agencies moving forward. DOB and DEP are looking very carefully, DOB in particular, at the applications for each individual ADU.
As DCP looks to support the city's effort to expand affordable housing, how is the agency considering transportation access or lack thereof as a factor in new zoning amendments?
Oh, transit is so key. We are a transit-oriented city. We should be even more so. I think it's really incumbent upon all of us to look for opportunities that leverage our incredible transit across the city. It's not just subway, it's also bus and bike, all modes of transit. Transit provides great places to locate homes, access to jobs, growth of institutions, you name it. So access to transit is Transit provides access, and access to transit is a very important motivator in our neighborhood planning.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your testimony today. Thank you for answering our questions. Commissioner, looking forward to working with you. Thank you so much to the DCP team, and we'll be in touch. You're excused from the panel.
Thank you very much, council members.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go to public testimony after we hear from LPC. So we're gonna hear from Landmarks Preservation Commission first, and then we're gonna go into public testimony. Okay. Okay. Before we go into the testimony, I'm just going to allow Chair Marte to give his opening statement.
Thank you, Chair Riley, and thank you to the leadership of the Landmarks Preservation Commission for being here today. We are here today to discuss the preliminary financial plan for fiscal 2026 to 2030 preliminary plan, which includes a proposed fiscal 2027 budget of $8.1 million and a fiscal 2026 budget of $8.96 million for LPC, both which are unchanged from the November 2025 plan. The preliminary plan did include a slight miscellaneous revenue increase for LPC of $150,000 in fiscal 2026, reflecting an increase in Landmarks permit fees collected due to larger projects submitting application for review. In addition to budget and resources, my questions focus on the following topic: LPC's process and plan for researching and designating new landmarks in historic districts, and LPC's oversight and stewardship of existing landmarks. In particular, we have seen a concerning trend in the demolition of historic landmark sites due to neglect and poor maintenance. The members of this committee and I are interested in hearing about LPC's effort to reduce instances of demolition and encourage proper care of landmarks to ensure we preserve these historically significant sites. Thank you again for joining us today, and I will pass it to the committee counsel to administer the oath.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. Could you please raise your right hand and state your name for the record?
Lisa Kersavage.
Stephen Thompson. Stephen Thompson. Akim Bashiru.
Please keep your right hand raised. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth in your testimony this morning and in your response to council member questions.
I do.
I do. I do.
Thank you.
You may begin.
Okay, great. So thank you, Chair Riley and Chair Marte. Good afternoon to you and to members of the Committee on Land Use Subcommittee, the Council Committee on Land Use and the Subcommittee on Landmark Sightings and Dispositions. I'm Lisa Kersavage, Executive Director. I'm pleased to be here today to speak about the Landmarks Preservation Commission's fiscal year 2027 preliminary budget. I'm joined today by Akim Bashiru, our Director of Financial Management, and Stephen Thompson, Director of Community and Intergovernmental Affairs. The Commission's mission is to protect the significant architectural, historical, and cultural resources of our city. We do that by designating buildings and sites as landmarks and subsequently regulating changes to them. The preservation of historic resources supports communities, fosters economic development, and contributes to the vitality of New York City. To date, the Commission has designated and regulates more than 38,500 buildings and sites throughout the 5 boroughs, and the agency issues about 12,000 work permits annually. Since we last testified on our agency's budget, LPC has continued advancements in our efforts to make city government work for New Yorkers by increasing the efficiency, transparency, and accessibility of our permitting process, designating significant historic resources across the city, and prioritizing those buildings and districts that reflect the city's diversity and tell the story of all New Yorkers, and educating property owners about permitting processes and grant opportunities. I will begin our testimony today giving a brief overview of LPC's budget and how resources are allocated. LPC's preliminary budget for fiscal year 2027 is $8.15 million, which consists of $7.45 million in city funds and nearly $700,000 in federal community development block grant funds. LPC is fundamentally an agency of professionals. Almost 90% of the preliminary budget of $7.3 million is allocated to personnel services, and only 10%, about $865,000, is allocated to other than personnel services. Our budget supports the agency's 5 departments, including the research department, responsible for evaluating and advancing properties for designation, the preservation department, which reviews permit applications for work on designated properties, the enforcement department, which investigates complaints of potential violations and helps owners correct noncompliances, and the archaeology and environmental review departments, which assist city, state, and federal agencies in their environmental review processes. The agency's total headcount in fiscal year 2027 preliminary budget is 78 full-time staff. We also have 5 part-time staff. Of the CDBG funding, about 82% is allocated to personnel services, supporting critical community development-related functions such as survey, environmental review, archaeology, community outreach, and education, while 18%, or approximately $115,000, is allocated for our historic preservation grant program for low-income homeowners and not-for-profit organizations. I will now discuss the work of the Commission these resources support. Research and designations. LPC is committed to equitable representation and designations with a focus on communities and neighborhoods that have been less represented by landmark designation, and we work closely with agencies like the Department of City Planning to find opportunities for designation in areas of growth and development citywide. In fiscal year 2026 to date, LPC has designated 5 new individual landmarks and 2 historic districts for a total of 433 buildings. The 2 new districts are in Flatbush, Brooklyn, Beverly Square West Historic District, and Ditmas Park West Historic District, comprising a total of 427 buildings. These 2 districts of distinctive freestanding houses contain some of the finest residential streetscapes in this part of Brooklyn. The 5 individual landmarks are in Midtown South, Manhattan, and are related to the garment industry: Barbie Building, Fashion Tower, Furcraft Building, 29th Street Towers, and Left Court Clothing Center, all designated as individual landmarks in August. Designed by many of the city's leading architects of the time, the buildings are some of the garment district's most impressive examples of early 20th century commercial architecture, and together tell the story of Midtown Manhattan's transformation at the turn of the 20th century into a global center of garment and furrier industries and a hub for the nation's growing labor movement, particularly for women. The Commission's designation of these buildings was done in coordination with DCP's Midtown South mixed-use plan. With the rezoning and the designation of these buildings, they can be adaptively reused for housing, and any excess air rights can be transferred to create additional housing opportunities. Earlier this month, LPC held public hearings for the proposed designation of 3 sites in Brooklyn and Manhattan as individual landmarks: Public School 15 Annex in Brooklyn, the Church of St. Mary, located in the Lower East Side, and the Lithuanian Alliance Building in Midtown Manhattan. In addition to their architectural significance, these buildings are all related to New York City's rich immigrant history, with all 3 serving important functions to educate, uplift, and provide social services to their respective communities. Moving forward, we will continue to prioritize designations that tell the full story of all New Yorkers and represent the diversity of the city, and are located in areas less represented by landmarks. I will now turn to our preservation and permitting operations. It is a top priority for LPC to support property owners of designated landmark buildings and to ensure an efficient, transparent, and accessible process for applicants. Our job is not to prevent change, but to manage it so that we can ensure these significant buildings and sites are protected and also remain vital. LPC's Preservation Department is the regulatory arm of the Commission and is the largest department within the agency. Our staff are professionally trained preservationists who work with property and business owners to help them obtain approval for work that meets their needs and is sensitive to the historic building and context. Each year, approximately 94 to 97% of permits are issued by staff pursuant to the Commission's rules. The remaining 3 to 6% of the applications are reviewed by the full Commission. LPC staff works closely with property owners to ensure they understand the criteria and review process and to help them put together a complete application and presentation. In FY25, the Commission received 11,748 permit applications and took action on 11,324 applications, ranging from restoration, adaptive reuse, additions, and new buildings. As of March 1st, we have received about 7,600 applications and are roughly on track to match the FY25 total. The projects approved by the Commission not only preserve historic buildings, but also help create new housing, support New York City's iconic cultural institutions, and help drive economic growth across all 5 boroughs. 2 years ago, LPC launched the agency's online application portal, Portico. Designed with New York City's small property owners in mind, Portico has had a transformative effect on LPC's permit application process, making it easier and faster for applicants to obtain permits to perform work on their designated properties. Since its launch, Portico has driven significant improvements in the efficiency of LPC's permitting process, with a 30% reduction in the average time it takes the agency to issue the 3 most common types of staff-level permits, and a 36% increase in the number of applications received and reviewed through LPC's expedited services, including the agency's Business Express service. A December 2025 report from the New York Comptroller's Office highlighted these gains, finding that Portico has increased both the efficiency and transparency of LPC's permitting process. LPC works hard to make our application process easy to understand and accessible. In the last year, we updated our permit guidebook, which helps applicants file complete applications so the agency can more quickly issue permits. The update incorporated newly adopted rules that allow for staff-level review of certain applications. Work to adopt new rules is ongoing because it allows a faster and more streamlined review of some applications, which allows the agency to be more responsive to property owners. I will now share some further details about the essential outreach and education work that LPC conducts. Outreach and education are essential to our success. Our goal is to make information accessible to everybody, especially property owners, business owners, and faith-based organizations, as a substantial number of owners directly file for permits with LPC. In recent years, we've increased community outreach efforts and now place special emphasis on meeting with communities across all 5 boroughs. In the last year, we have partnered with several council members and community boards to host events, to share information on permits, grants, and financial incentives for property owners in historic districts, ranging from Sugar Hill and Hamilton Heights in Upper Manhattan, to Sunset Park and Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn, and St. George and Stapleton Heights on Staten Island. And in the months ahead, we look forward to holding events in Longwood, in the Bronx, and Ridgewood, Queens. These in-person engagements make regulation and funding opportunities accessible through direct conversations with LPC staff members. We often are accompanied by language interpreters, and LPC staff can answer questions in real time and maintain contact with property owners as they prepare permit applications. We also work to celebrate landmark designations and provide educational tools for New Yorkers to engage in the city's history. In the last year, LPC released 2 enhanced online mapping tools, the Discover New York City Landmarks Map and the Archaeology Report Finder, that make it easier for users looking for information on a given landmark site. These are accessible on LPC's website, along with other tools, including story maps featuring sites, an immersive heritage trail of abolitionist and Underground Railroad sites in Brooklyn. Before I conclude, I want to return to the Historic Preservation Grant Program, a modest federally funded program targeted for low and moderate income homeowners and not-for-profit organizations to help restore or repair the facades of their landmark buildings. In FY25, the program awarded 3 $35,000 grants, 2 to homeowners and 1 to a nonprofit organization. Homeowner grants supported restoration work at the properties in Crown Heights North Historic District in Brooklyn and the Cambria Heights Historic District in Queens, including brownstone and stoop repairs, window replacement, and lead paint remediation. The nonprofit grant supported roof replacement at the office building at Frederick Douglass Memorial Park, an individual landmark on Staten Island. In FY26 thus far, LPC has awarded 3 grants ranging from $11,000 to $35,000 to 1 homeowner and 2 nonprofit organizations. The homeowner grants support window replacement and restoration of brownstone stoop and trim at a property in Morris High School Historic District in the Bronx. And the nonprofit grants include window replacement at a religious property in the Chelsea Historic District in Manhattan and work at the Metro Theater, an individual landmark on Broadway on the Upper West Side. In summary, we are excited for the future of historic preservation in New York City and thank the administration and City Council for your continued support and for the resources provided in this budget. We are a small agency and nearly the entirety of our budget is personnel-based. LPC has a hardworking, dedicated, and professional staff with an outsized impact on our city, responsible for the protection and preservation of its most significant buildings, districts, and sites. Our commitment is that we will continue to do this important work with the resources provided and strive to do so equitably, efficiently, and transparently. Thank you again for allowing me to testify. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Lisa. I just have a couple of questions and one request, and then I'll turn over to Chair Marte. Is my impression that in the past couple of years, the number of landmark applications have decreased? Could you please discuss the trend and why?
And so could I just clarify your question? Are you talking about landmark designations or permit applications for work?
Designations.
Oh, designations. Okay. It is true that, in the years during the pandemic and following the pandemic, the number of landmark designations did decrease. But as I just noted, our numbers already in FY26 are substantially higher. I think it's important to understand that for our designations, the numbers are really a snapshot in time and don't necessarily reflect, all of the surveys and studies that are ongoing or the work with owner outreach. So sometimes in a fiscal year, it'll look especially slow because we've been doing a lot of studies or a lot of outreach. These, all landmark designations take time. And so, it's important that we do things, correctly, and we do a lot of robust owner outreach.
Thank you. Is the average age of landmark buildings going down as more older buildings have already been landmarked?
The average age of landmark buildings?
Yeah, newer buildings.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't think I have an answer for that, but it's something that we can look into. I'm sure our research department would love to
check
look
that
at
out, right?
Yeah, I think still probably it's sort of late 19th century, early 20th century row houses are probably still make up most of the designated buildings.
Okay. And last, just a request. I know that you're doing a lot of community engagements. I see you have one in the Bronx in Longwood.
Yeah.
I would love if you come to the Northeast Bronx to do some community engagement as possible. So if you could
Sure.
do some outreach to our office to do so, I would really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And I'll turn over to Chair Marte for his lines of question.
Thank you, Chair Riley. I'm going to skip to the designations just to follow what Chair Riley was questioning. In the preliminary mayor's management report indicates that during the first 4 months of fiscal year 2025, all 5 individual landmark designation came as a result of DCP's Midtown South mixed-use plan. Why in 2025 was there only 1 designation outside of this rezoning plan? And why are so few landmarks being designated independently of rezoning plans?
Right. Well, actually, the Midtown South buildings were designated in FY26, actually. And we were very happy to work with city planning on that. As I noted, when there's a neighborhood rezoning plan and there are preservation opportunities, we do try and work with DCP on that. And so, we had been working with them throughout that process. The last year, the buildings that were designated, it was admittedly a lower number, and that included the Whitney building interior, the Jacob Day residence, which is a very important abolition site, and the Modulator building interior. So those were the 4 designations of FY25. So thus far in FY26, we've done the 5 Midtown South buildings and then 2 historic districts in Brooklyn.
Thank
and then
you.
we have 3 calendared buildings.
Thank you. One thing you mentioned to the chair was that you can't look at these in a moment of time. You have to look at them at a wider scope. Since 2020, an average of 5.5 individual landmarks has been designated per year, compared to 20.7 for the past previous 5 years. Can you explain the downturn in designations?
Yeah, I do think that 2020 with the pandemic and then coming out of the pandemic, I think we were really focused on making sure that our agency was addressing critical needs related to our permitting and helping the city with recovery. So I think it's not surprising that we were designating fewer buildings at that time. But our research staff was focused on surveys. They've been doing a lot of analysis. We're working on a big technology project. So there's a lot of work that goes into the identification of historic resources that builds the foundation for future designation. So our focus during that very difficult and dark time in New York City was really on building that foundation.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go now to vacancies. LPC had vacancy rate of 15.4% as of January 2026. What challenges is LPC facing to backfill vacancies?
At the moment, we have less than that. We're about 9%, and so we have 7 vacant positions, and we are working with OMB to fill those as appropriate, as we can.
Can you tell us some of those plans to ensure that these vacancy positions are filled during the next fiscal year?
Yeah, we were able to fill quite a few positions at the end of December and early January. And we're actually in the process of hiring the Deputy Director of Research. That's an approved position. And then the other positions, we'll be working with OMB to see how we can fill them.
There are currently 2 commissioner positions vacant, with one being the chair, which requires mayoral appointment and city council approval. How critical is it for these 2 commissioner positions to be filled? Has the administration given a timeline to LPC about filling these 2 positions?
Sure. That is correct. We have 2 vacant commission positions, and I'd really have to refer that question on timing to the administration.
LPC had no changes to their budget in the fiscal 2027 preliminary plan. Are there any additional resources or operational changes that could help LPC to address its vacancy rate?
I believe we have the resources in place that we need, to address those vacancies and make sure that we are able to do our critical services.
Yeah. In the past, LPC was targeted for vacancy reductions to find savings. What positions has historically been targeted for those vacancy reductions, and are there vacancies in those positions now?
Well, previous vacancy reductions have tended to be positions like our landmarks preservationists, where there's, it makes up 55% of our staff, so that we're able to continue to do our critical services. But I can't speak to any plans right now for vacancy reduction. And typically, too, those vacancies have been restored as well. So we've had all of those positions restored to us.
Okay. We know that there's been a chief saving officer in every agency. Can you share any findings from the chief saving officer now that their proposal has been submitted?
Sure. That proposal was submitted on Friday, and since it's still under review with OMB and City Hall, I think it's premature for us to share any findings on that. But with time, that will be shared.
Is there a timeline for when the public will have more information on those findings?
I don't have that information.
Does LPC still have the 2-for-1 hiring restriction in place, first imposed by the previous Adams administration?
That has been changed recently, and so the LPC will have the ability to hire up to our revised budgeted headcount.
Okay, cool. I'm going to move towards violation and complaints.
Okay.
According to LPC's data, since 2014, there are 2,383 violations that are still active. That is 43% of all violations issued over this time, some issues over 10 years ago. Can you explain the status of these violations and why so many remain active?
Sure. And, I just want to preface this by saying that our enforcement department is really focused on compliance and not necessarily taking, issuing penalties. So we really are trying to work, very closely with property owners on, addressing the violation. So because of that, because our focus is on compliance, we have many steps we take before we say issue a penalty, and that is kind of staff intensive and takes longer. And I will also note, we did look into that the 43%. I think it's actually lower than that, but I think when you look at recent years, like in FY26, we have 90% of our violations are open because we're still working with the property owners. So when you go back in time, the percentage reduces dramatically. But in more recent years, we have more open violations because we're still working with those property owners.
Yeah.
But we spend a lot of time really working with homeowners, property owners to find a resolution.
Yeah, and for the general public that doesn't know the process, there's typically a warning letter that's sent before issuing a violation. Is that correct?
That's correct. And actually, we have found that 50% of the violations are cleared after sending that warning letter.
Yeah, and I think one of the issues that I really want to concentrate on is that last year we saw 790 complaints, less than that of which have received a warning letter. Can you explain the rise in complaints and why the majority of them result in no enforcement or at least not being issued a warning letter?
Sure. The number of complaints has gone up, and it's another thing that during the pandemic the number of complaints dropped quite a bit. And they've been climbing upward. And I think that probably says something about just generally the economy of the city and work being done on buildings. And so we think that, it's related to just sort of generally people seeing work done on landmark properties, and also that, potentially advocacy groups, sending them in. But we investigate every single complaint. But not all of them have violations. These are things that come in from the public who might think there's a violation, and there isn't necessarily one that we see. So that, there's not a one-for-one correlation between the complaints and the violations by any means.
Okay. I'm going to move to oversight over existing landmarks and demolition by neglect. Demolition by neglect is when landlords allow landmark designated properties to fall into such a state of disrepair that demolition is the only reasonable outcome. LPC has also indicated that they can take a compliance approach to enforcement activities, preferring to provide guidance and resources or send stop work orders and warning letters to property managers rather than issue fines and fees, as you stated. How many applications for demolition has been rejected by LPC in the last year and also in the last 5 years?
Yeah, and I do want to separate out, applications for demolition, which could be something like a rear yard garage that's not contributing versus the actual demolition by neglect. So in terms of the demolition by neglect, exactly what you said is true. It is buildings that are not in sound condition and, at risk of deterioration. And so the number of buildings that have been demolished that were considered demolished by neglect is very small. We believe since 2018, about 13 buildings were demolished by an order of DOB because they were in a state that they were a threat to public safety. So, out of our 38,500 buildings, it's a tiny percentage. But I recognize that it's very upsetting to lose any of these buildings. We work very hard to not let buildings get to that place. I think people might think sometimes that it's a developer or somebody like that, or a bad actor, but it's oftentimes property owners who are struggling. And so that is why we spend a lot of time really trying to help those property owners, trying to help them get the building to a better state of repair. And again, we're really focusing on compliance instead of issuing violations. That said, though, if we need to, we do have the power to enter into litigation, and we do that. We have 4 cases right now. So I think that we have a good balance in this program of trying to really get to the compliance without being punitive, but also trying to save as many historic buildings as we can.
Yeah. As many of us know, many tenement buildings in historic districts or that are landmark contain affordable housing units. Do you know how many affordable housing units were lost as a part of the number that you mentioned have been approved for demolition?
I do not know that, but not all of these buildings are residential, for one thing. We could try and look into that, but I think these are largely smaller row house buildings, but we could certainly try and look into that and understand it.
Thank you. Would LPC be supportive of legislation to strengthen enforcement around owner neglect and to restrict an owner's ability to demolish their landmark building?
I think that the system that we have and the legislation that we have is sufficient. And I also want to note that in 2023, we did launch a vulnerable building action plan that has really made a difference. And we've been focusing on earlier detection of at-risk buildings. And we do that through having DOB share more information with us. But also we've been really focusing on outreach to community groups, to elected officials, so that if people see that a building may be deteriorating, that they let us know and we can start monitoring it. So I think these changes to, not necessarily to any laws, but to how we practice, have really made a big difference.
Great. Those are my questions for right now. I'm going to kick it back to the chair.
All right. Just want to state for the record, we've been joined by Councilmember Banks. Councilmember Banks, you can ask your question.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thanks again. The Landmark Commission, Preservation Commission has identified, quote, demolition by neglect, unquote, as a growing issue. Where landmark properties fall into despair due to lack of maintenance. Given that the agency is operating with a vacancy rate of over 15% and a largely flat budget, how is the FY27 preliminary budget strengthening enforcement capacity to address this issue?
Well, thank you for that question. Our enforcement department is fully staffed, so we don't actually have any vacancies in that department. And I don't think that we're necessarily seeing more demolition by neglect. I know that it's every time it happens, it's very upsetting. But right now in FY26,
Right.
we haven't seen any. We are undertaking some litigation for some properties, but I think that if we continue to, keep our department staffed and continue to work with our vulnerable building action plan, I think that we can address this important issue.
Thank you for that information. Also, how is the commission using its current resources to intervene earlier, whether through enforcement actions or facilitating responsible ownership transitions to prevent the loss of historically significant buildings?
Sure, and I think that one way is that we're getting information from Department of Buildings. So we have, data sharing on buildings that might have violations, that are landmarks that have violations with DOB, so we can start to have better monitoring.
Okay.
Yeah.
And while there's been an increase in landmark designations recently, how is the current budget supporting the continuation and the expansion of that work, particularly in communities that have historically been underrepresented in the landmark designations?
Sure. And, designating in places that have been less represented by
Right.
landmarks is really important to us. Our research department is, we don't have a high rate of vacancy there now. We're working on hiring a deputy director of research. And, I think that we've been undertaking a lot of studies that will enable us to, pursue landmark designations moving forward.
Thank you for your response on that. And my last question is actually deals with Nycc. I want to know, are all Nycc buildings, are they landmarked?
I believe
And-
that there's only actually 2 Nycc buildings or complexes that are landmark, but we can get back to you. There's a number that are on the National Register of Historic
Right.
Places, and that enables them to take advantage of federal tax credits. But
Have there been any recent, or have there been any recent or over the history, has there been any submittal for landmarking applications for Nycc buildings that you know of?
well, we don't have applications for landmarks, but we do have requests for
Well,
evaluation.
requesting, yeah.
And I believe that there's been some over the years, and we could certainly pull that information together and share that with you.
Okay. We'd love to know the status of those applications, whether accepted or rejected. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. Just a few more questions. Has LPC reviewed any proposals for ADUs since City of Yes zoning for housing opportunity came into effect in late 2024?
We don't believe that we have had an application for an ADU proper. We have, lots of multifamily buildings and outbuildings that we regulate. But we are excited by the opportunity with ADUs. We are planning to release guidance and maps that are very specific to landmarks issues to try and encourage people to build them. So we're excited to get applications.
Is there a different type of approach for ADUs in historic districts that you guys are creating a plan for?
Well, I would note that there's 3 types of ADUs that are allowed in historic districts. New buildings are the one type that are exempt in historic districts, but we think there's a real growth opportunity with the ancillary structures to be converted to ADUs, and also attic and basement ADUs are allowed.
What kind of public engagement do you undertake when determining boundaries for new historic districts?
So when we identify a historic district, we do quite a bit of outreach. So we typically will start with a public meeting where we invite everybody that's in the proposed historic district. And sometimes we have 1, 2, or 3 meetings, depending on the amount of interest and questions. And then we very frequently do one-on-one meetings with property owners as well to understand if they have concerns or if they have work underway. That kind of outreach is incredibly important to LPC.
How is your plan affected when community members want a larger area designated, opposed to what you initially proposed to them?
Well, it's very important that we make merit-based decisions. So when our research department draws boundaries for historic districts, it's really based on the merit of the buildings. And that's kind of a hard thing sometimes to explain, or for people who would like to be in a historic district. So we work hard to explain our findings, but it can be disappointing to people, I recognize.
Thank you, and we thank you for your work. There being no more questions for this panel is excused. Thank you so much.
Great.
We're going to transition into public testimony. First, we're going to begin with those who are here with us. I'm going to call up, and excuse me if I butcher your name. You could correct me when you come up. Miguela Crator, Loga Faris, Andrea Goldwyn, and Sharon Frey Stater. Being we have 3 seats, it's just 3. Yeah.
Online or in person?
Okay, so we're gonna get your form. So you know what? We'll just take 3 now, and then we'll do another panel. So you could take away the chair, and we'll do the next panel. Okay. Walter, can you just give her a form so she can fill out? Thank you. I'm sorry, Miss. What was your name? Sharon? All right, I'll call you on the next panel, Sharon. Okay. Members of the public are going to be given 3 minutes to testify. Please, after you hear the buzzer, if you could just wrap it up 15 seconds after that. We're going to do in-person testimony, and then we're going to transition to online testimony. First, we're going to hear from Andrea.
Okay. Good day, Chair Riley, council members. I'm Andrea Goldwyn speaking on behalf of the New York Landmarks Conservancy. The Conservancy is a 53-year-old organization dedicated to preserving, revitalizing, and reusing New York's historic buildings and neighborhoods. We want to ensure that New York's rich diversity of architecture continues to enhance the city, creating jobs, housing New Yorkers, encouraging sustainability, and welcoming visitors from around the world. We were founded to support the people who own and use buildings that fall under the purview of the Landmarks Commission. Our financial and preservation service programs have worked with many thousands of New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs who are living and working in these historic properties. And this gives us a particular interest in the budget and long-term plans for the Commission. We're glad to see that in an era of fiscal restraint, the personnel budget is set to remain level. And we look forward to the appointment of at least one position, the chair. The staff and acting chair continue to keep the agency and the commission running smoothly, but keeping this position vacant is not viable for the long term. The commission staff completes an extraordinary workload every year. They process and complete over 10,000 permit applications. The new application portal, Portico, has increased efficiency for the agency and transparency for teams working on building projects. We appreciate LPC's outreach efforts and have been glad to participate in meetings with constituents. Regarding designations, as noted, over the past several years, the numbers have decreased, but there are still many buildings and neighborhoods that merit designation for architectural, cultural, and historic significance, and designations remain popular with many residents. On the issue of historic districts, you might hear that they are preventing new housing or that there needs to be a moratorium on designations. Please note that across the city, historic districts encompass about 5% of land and lots. Many are in the densest neighborhoods, and designation helps limit the demolition of existing affordable housing. There are, of course, many, many reasons why housing is so expensive in New York, but historic districts are a small factor in that discussion. I have an attached map, which you have, which illustrates that point. Historic districts have proven to be a remarkable success for the city, revitalizing neighborhoods, protecting homes, fighting climate change, and celebrating New York's whole story. Preservation is also a strong economic engine, creating jobs and encouraging heritage tourism. And again, this is all accomplished in under 5% of buildings and building lot area. We hope that going forward, LPC will be able to increase designations to accomplish all of these goals. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Conservancy's views.
Thank you. Good morning, or good afternoon. My name is Logan Ferris, and I serve as the political director at Open New York, a statewide grassroots advocacy organization that advocates for more homes, lower rents, and tenant protections. Thank you, Chair Riley and members of the committee for allowing me to speak today. In November, New Yorkers voted overwhelmingly to meaningfully address our housing crisis by making it easier and faster to build homes in every corner of our city. These changes expanded upon the historic progress made in the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity and the City Council's City for All, which collectively enabled over 80,000 new homes across the 5 boroughs. While these changes mark a massive step towards addressing our historic housing crisis, it also means that we're asking for even more from the Department of City Planning, from small private applications to large neighborhood rezonings that will create tens of thousands more affordable homes. All of it requires staff and resources. Cutting DCP's budget by 12% as proposed will save just $6.8 million, not much in the context of the large city budget. The minor savings achieved will be eclipsed by the costs of working people continuing to leave our city, taking their talents and tax dollars with them. New Yorkers were clear this past election. We need to continue to make strides to create more housing and lower the rent. Mayor Mamdani and Speaker Menon agree that we must drastically increase the number of homes in our city in order to make it affordable for working families. We've made great progress with City of Yes and City for All. Now we must empower DCP to deliver the housing New Yorkers need by funding the agency above and beyond last year's allocation. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Committee Chair Riley and members of the Land Use Committee for the opportunity to testify today. Given time, I've abbreviated our written submission, which provides more details and examples of the concerns I will share with you. My name is Michaela Crater. I am the Interim Executive Director, and I'm speaking on behalf of Southwest Brooklyn Industrial Development Corporation, SBIDC for short. For over 40 years, we have served as the industrial businesses and workers of Sunset Park, Red Hook, and Gowanus. Across these neighborhoods, more than 2,000 industrial firms power the working waterfront, from food production, garment manufacturing to film and TV, fabrication, wholesale, and logistics. And we have deep, decades-long relationships with these companies and businesses, and we know the pulse of these sectors. We are the local intermediaries that connect them to government. Each year, our organization supports over 250 companies and businesses through direct services and advocacy, and since 2017, we've helped place more than 2,000 New Yorkers into quality, family-sustaining jobs. And land use decisions made by the city directly impact and shape the stability of these companies and businesses and the communities that rely on these jobs. SBIDC has served as a steward of what is formerly referred to as the city's in-place industrial park since the late 70s, supporting safety and sanitation, and later the evolving needs of what are now referred to as industrial business zones. While these challenges that businesses have changed, the need for constant specialized guidance has not. I'm here today because that continuity is at risk. The city is currently proposing to eliminate the only public program dedicated to supporting these small manufacturers and industrial companies, the IBSP program. For SBIDC and our brothers and sisters in the industrial service areas, this represents a significant cut to our budgets. For the sector, it means a loss of critical specialized support that no generalist program is positioned to replace. This is being framed as streamlining. It is not. This is policy making in the name of efficiency with very real and very foreseeable consequences. Industrial companies and businesses operate within highly specialized systems, land use, logistics, workforce, and regulation. A generalized approach cannot replace the trust, expertise, and relationships that have been built over a decade, and that trust matters. For example, when Workspace 11, a Gowanus-based fabrication firm, faced displacement due to an eminent domain proceeding, SBIDC was the first to inform them and the partner that helped them navigate what came next. We guided them through negotiations, financing, and relocation, helping them stay in the neighborhood that preserved over 30 jobs. This is what specialized place-based support looks like, and it can't be replicated by a program that does not know the block, the business, or the history. We are coming to your committee because you hold the keys to land use decisions that impact businesses, and these are your constituents. We support making the city more efficient, and I see I'm out of time. More efficient, but not at the expense of the city's ability to provide targeted, trusted support to essential businesses. There must be a better way to achieve our shared goals. We urge you to work with administration to remove the industrial services from the proposed RFP that SBS has positioned, extend the IBSP contracts for several years, 2 years, work with us to build a modern sector-specific program. This is about whether New York and its stewards who make or break our small businesses continue to invest in the systems that allow it to function and adopt. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, and I'll just ask if you haven't already, to give us a copy of your testimony. Thank you so much. This panel is excused. The next panel we're going to hear from is Emmy and Sharon. We'll begin first with Sharon, followed by Emmy.
Okay. Hello, my name is Sharon Freistetter. I come on behalf to you today from an organization that's grassroots called Club A Kitchen. We operate in an unofficial city garden called Bushwick City Farms. It is on 23 Lewis Street or 354 Stockton Street. We have been using donations from the community members to bring food to the neighborhoods for the past 5 years, every Wednesday and Saturday, rain or shine, without fail. We have never missed a day. So the community garden has recently been rezoned from a residential space to a commercial space, which has increased taxes on the landowner. It's a class 4 commercial space, and it has increased taxes on the landowner. So he is no longer letting us use the space for free to have our garden where we have trees growing and plants growing, and the space that we have been hosting a community distribution center for the past 5 years. And right now we are at risk of losing the space, a space that we have been trying to work with the New York City's government to turn into an official Green Thumb space for the past few years, since 2017. So I am here for your consideration to allocate this space into an official Green Thumb space to keep using it for the neighborhood as we have been for ever since 2011. So as a humanitarian, we have been allowing the people who come every single week to use the space to grow their own food, and they're there working on the plots, making food, growing herbs, growing produce, as well as standing in our line to receive the food that we have been bringing to them. And we have had volunteers coming from all over the city with cars, with whatever they can do to drive over food, to reach out to the local grocery stores to bring resources to these people. And we adjust with the neighborhood and have been adjusting. So when a men's shelter opened up across the street, we used our funds to buy porta potties or rent porta potties, and we cleaned them out weekly. We talked to these men, we gave them food, we gave them resources, and find anything that to move them forward and to find jobs. When the egg prices went up and no one was able to buy eggs anymore, we have chickens on the farm that we have distributed dozens of eggs to the people in the neighborhood. Just recently, when SNAP benefits were cut for the city, we were able to gather all our volunteers and funds to buy more food to support the increase of load of families waiting in line to receive produce for the month of November. And as I have mentioned, this garden has been a work in progress that we have been working on since 2011. So we have trees that have been growing there for 11 years. We have apple trees, plum trees, fig, mulberry, trees that actively reduce the heat in New York City and increase the air quality in New York City. I personally want to grow chestnut trees with New York City's restoration project, but we cannot do that without this being an official Green Thumb space, and we really hope that you guys are willing to help us out. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Emmy?
Hi, I'm here today as a member of the community who has been lucky enough to be touched by the work of Bushwick City Farm. This cherished green space located just down the road from Councilmember Osei in the heart of Brooklyn is at risk of imminent destruction if the city does not act. There are many supporters for the farm today here in person, online, and in the Parks Committee. Bushwick City Farm has been a vital community resource for years, 15 years to be exact, put at risk by rising taxes, rezoning, and the recent reclassification of the space as a tax class 4 commercial property. The garden is asking the city to acquire the property and turn it into a proper Green Thumb garden instead of pawning it off to the highest real estate bidder. While I'm sure many will speak today and submit written testimony on the specifics of the bureaucratic situation, I want to talk money. In a time with skyrocketing rent and rampant gentrification, the city using its limited resources to acquire a community garden may seem low priority. But make no mistake, this is not a cost to the city, because I believe Bushwick City Farm and groups like Club A Kitchen, where it operates out of, has already saved the city millions, yes, millions of dollars in its 15 years of existence. The farm transformed an abandoned lot that was essentially a neighborhood dump full of mattresses and needles into a flourishing community space. It's fed thousands of families, rescued and grown and distributed thousands of pounds of food, cleaned up, quite frankly, unholy amount of trash, and provided unique educational and cultural opportunities to countless community members, especially kids, like aquaponics, concerts, and lessons on food sovereignty. It served hundreds of migrants who were relocated to a shelter across the street that closed down last year. The Bushwick City Farm is not just a community of gardeners. It is a community of people who, often using only our lived experiences, Google, and each other, have acted as farmers, teachers, caregivers, food distributors, social workers, homeless street outreach specialists, conflict mediators, legal experts, city planners, harm reductionists, for people who struggle with addiction, case managers, translators, sanitation workers, and crisis first responders. Bushwick City Farm has truly done it all, day in, day out, for 15 years. I truly believe the BCF community has saved thousands of lives, in addition to the millions of dollars that this labor would have otherwise cost the city. Allocating funds to preserve the farm is not an expenditure. It is breaking even, and even more, it is an investment. The labor of the BCF community has sustained the neighborhood for over a decade. When previous administrations of the city failed hungry families, BCF stepped in. When they failed migrants, BCF stepped in. When they failed to provide a safe space for children, BCF stepped in. Now we need our elected officials to step in. All of Brooklyn is forever in debt to Bushwick City Farm and its founders. Pay it back, pay it forward. Please invest in Bushwick City Farm. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Sharon, Brian is going to take your information so we can follow up and see how we could be helpful. Okay? All right. Thank you so much for your testimony. This panel is excused. We're going to transition into online testimony. We just have two people signed up online. If you are online and would like to testify, please use the raise hand function and we will promote you up. We're going to begin the first panel, or the only panel we have, with Leticia Duller and Marissa McLeika. We'll begin first with Leticia Duller. Online testimony, you'll be given 2 minutes to testify. After you hear the buzzer, please give 15 seconds to wrap it up. Leticia, you may begin.
Hi, I am speaking as a longtime volunteer at Bushwick City Farms. I've been involved since November of 2020. We started distributing food with Club A during the pandemic. And yeah, it was a time where a lot of people needed resources, needed help, and we were able to kind of step up and feed the entire community. The garden has been active for 15 years and has just provided the neighborhood with countless resources, countless everything. Yeah, when an asylum seeker shelter opened up right across from the farm, and all of these guys were kind of bussed in to New York, yeah, we kind of immediately mobilized and were able to provide them with food, with meals. There was a long period during which the shelter didn't have any running water, and it was hundreds of men. And we were able to get a shower bus to come in. We were able to have the guys do their laundry and use the bathroom at the farm, which is, this tiny community space. We were able to have French speakers and Arabic speakers mobilized to, yeah, to provide translation services and just help these guys with their paperwork, because they were not really being offered these resources, or the city was overwhelmed. And so that is just an example of how Bushwick City Farms, and similar spaces like this really step up and kind of pick up where the city is failing. And we do so, without getting paid and without asking for anything in return. But now we are at risk of losing the whole space, which would genuinely, oh, no, which genuinely would be so devastating to the neighborhood. And like I know asylum seekers who were in that shelter, and and now have their own apartments, and they come all the way from the Bronx.
Your time has expired.
Sorry.
Thank you so much, Leticia. You can start wrapping up in 15 seconds.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and just this space is completely invaluable, and it would be it would be devastating to lose this space, and we're asking for the city to help us in any way that they can.
Thank you so much. Next, we're going to hear from Marissa. Marissa, if you can hear me, please unmute and you may begin.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, my name is Marissa Metelica. I am a longtime volunteer at Bushwick City Farm as well. Since 2012, I've been a volunteer there, and I just want to add a few things to the testimony that my colleagues have already provided. One is that the space in District 36 is, it's at the crux of, it's right near the Broadway, the Myrtle Broadway JMZ train, and so it's right near Bushwick and Bed-Stuy where they intersect. And in that area, there's a dearth of green spaces. So actually, there's nothing within a half a mile walking from the location where Bushwick City Farm exists currently. And so on a level of, needing spaces for young people to congregate outside safely, We need to maintain the space for those community needs, as well as, you know, elders who need a third space to gather and rest in the shade in the summertime, in addition to the food that people come to receive and the other supports that they receive. So I just want to urge, we have a path forward that we would like to propose, and we have been proposing, and we have actually had several meetings with Councilmember Osei's office, as well as Borough President Reynoso's office. And so, you know, there is a precedent for this kind of allocation of privately held space to be allocated to Parks Department and turned into Green Thumb, and that is by using the discretionary capital funding from a combination of Parks Department and the council member's office and the borough president's office to purchase the land from the title owner and then turn it over to Green Thumb space. And so that's specifically what we are requesting, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Marissa. I see that we've been joined by one more person, so I'm going to ask Sherry-Ann Callahan to unmute, and you may begin. Thank you, Marissa. Sherry-Ann, if you could hear me, please unmute. Okay, we lost Sherry-Ann. We're going to stand at ease for 20 seconds to see if there's anyone else that wants to testify. Okay. Okay. All right. There being no one else signed to testify, this hearing is closed. I would like to thank Council, Sergeant at Arms, the Land Use Division, and my colleagues of government for being here today, and especially our Finance Division as well. Thank you to everyone that signed up to testify. All right, hold on one second, y'all. Marissa, if you can hear me, please unmute. I think she has her hand raised. There's two Marissas online, so I'm not sure if there's someone that's trying to testify under another.
Hey, I have my hand up. My name is Tyler Mann.
Tyler? Okay,
Yes.
Tyler, go ahead.
Nice. Thank you very much. I am also calling to advocate for Brooklyn City Farms. I'm a Brooklyn resident. I'm a native New Yorker. And this garden has existed for like 15 years. Brooklyn is, as people who are here know, a lot of this, you know, borough is a food desert. A lot of this borough is a green space desert. Like Marissa said, there's no green space, there's no safe places for kids. And even this garden, it used to be a dump, it used to be a danger to the community. It used to be dangerous, and the neighborhood got together and turned it into somewhere where it was safe for kids, and it turned up in a space where, you know, kids in the neighborhood grew up there. And thousands of people have depended on the space for free food and access to nature and a community hub and a safe third space. And now this space that so many people depend on is at risk of being completely lost. And yeah, the city needs to help protect this space for the community. There's not enough spaces like this for anybody. And the garden has been advocating to permanentize this space since 2017, so almost a decade now. They've been working with the city to try to permanentize it and protect it from the neighborhood. So I'm just calling to advocate for that process, and I'm really urging my local government to work with this garden, to work with Bushwick City Farms, and to protect the space. It's a really, really essential green third space. We need more. So thank you.
Okay. We have a phone number that ended with 4346. If you could hear me, the phone number ending with 4346, please unmute by pressing *6. If you're the phone number ending with 4346, please unmute and press *6 to begin your testimony.
Hi, my name is Mary Coker. I'm
Yes, we
also
can hear
a
you.
resident of Brooklyn. Okay, I'm also a resident of Brooklyn advocating for Bushwick City Farms. I live in Bed-Stuy, and this space means so much to me and my community as a place to be, a place where people can be fed, where they can, meet other community members, like I've stated, where they can, be safe and enjoy what the neighborhood has to offer. And I just wanted to say that I think it should be allowed to remain as it has been for the last 15 years. And I think the city should have a part in maintaining it.
Thank you so much. Okay, there's no one else online signed up to testify. With that being said, I'm going to close today's hearing. Thank you so much for everyone who participated. This hearing is thereby adjourned. Thank you.